Brand disclaimer. The views and opinions expressed by individuals on this platform, the callers plus invited guests, are their own. The information you hear does not reflect the overall views of all parties associated with this brand. We encourage everyone to research all things heard live or via archive for edification purposes. Discretion is advised.
Don't touch that dial. You're now listening to Debate Talk Free Radio.
Help keep the show on the air. If you want to help, you can send your donation through PayPal. The email is debatetalkforyou@gmail.com or through Cash App, $Sal Showtime. Thanks for your support.
Peace. What it is your brother Tavon Swainell, a.k.a. the Orthodox Moor, a.k.a. the Seven Pillar Saracen. And this evening, we were having a conversation with Brother G-Con about Gedmatch discrepancies, about DNA, etc., whatnot. This seems to be one of the hot topics at the moment or whatnot. And the brother wanted to come on and address a couple things. I was just recently on like the Dagger Squad talking about this with Ngozi and Garfield, etc., whatnot, and Brother Anka, whatnot. So this seems to be like a really interesting conversation right now going on between the UA community and the Israelite community, etc., whatnot. So without further ado, grace and peace to you, Brother G-Con. Please come through and state your case, brother man.
What's going on, brother? Can you hear me? Am I clear?
Yeah, hear you loud and clear, brother man.
All right, cool. So it definitely been a contention topic, in regards to this. When you I think you did a show the other day, and I think that Ngozi was on there, and I think he explained it well, and went through a couple of things. And so I had a conversation the other day at Brother Berean, and plus I had pulled up my Gedmatch and put my kid in there and brought up some things or whatever. And so I think that that's some of the things that need to be looked at and need to be examined. I think that the Black Hebrew Israelites have been taking a lot of some of the things that we've seen, some of the things that within Gedmatch, and using the wrong the projects, and those Gedmatch had already emailed one of those guys from Pastor Boom, the guy from Boom Church, which one of the pastors, I forgot his name, and told him they recommended that he uses the Etho Helix project, if anything, because based upon where he say the admixture did he have, rather not than using one population approximations. And so that's what some of the things I want to go over with was my kit tonight, and some of those things to look into some of those things.
Okay. Before we get into that, for viewers who aren't familiar, what is your perception as to what Gedmatch is and how it should be used?
I think it's a database that you can where they have Gedmatch have a lot of populations that they have went and dealt with sequence basically in raw data. And so what you do is you upload your raw data, your file, and then you put it in to see, basically some of the populations that might not have been matched within 23andMe, or different populations that we see. They have more of a large database, it seems like.
Okay. So are you going to want to share your screen and put up the Gedmatch or no?
Yeah, hold on. Let me do that right now. Hold on. Let me get hold on. Yeah, but so that's what I've been kind of looking into, but it's like these guys always hijack something. But I seen you did it. What's your you did something? What's your perspective on it? Because I seen that you had, while I'm getting my pen and stuff, because I seen that you had posted some things.
Yeah. So from my understanding, yeah, Gedmatch is a genetic database that gives you different projects from around the world with different sequences of different ethnic groups that are put in those projects that you can put your DNA into from a different DNA companies or whatnot, and see where you migrated from, where you linked to, et cetera, whatnot.
All right.
If you want to, I can play a couple clips from when I was talking to Ngozi while you looking for the stuff.
That's cool. That'll be cool.
All right, yeah. Let me do that right quick.
That's fair. The Orthodox Moor, you up? What you got to say, brother?
Yeah, real quick. I just wanted to ask you a couple of questions on your position on Israelites in West Africa and then the Lemba overall.
All right. Hold on. We're going to get to that. We're going to get to that. Hold on a second. Me and Ngozi, we have a section for you. Right now, we need.
I got a quick question for Ngozi, right quick, so I can understand what he was saying. Though.
All right, go ahead.
So, just so I understand, for the people who are Israelite in America claiming that they're connected to the Lemba, you're saying that's not correct in the sense that when their DNA connected, we connect to their Bantu to the Lemba Bantu DNA, not the Semitic DNA within the Lemba, correct?
Yes, partially right. Partially, it's more to
partially
that.
right. Correct.
Yeah,
There's more to it than that. Yes.
Okay.
You could tell that you actually understand. I respect that question. I respect that. But we gonna talk about. He said it earlier. But Ngozi, I gotta slow you down on the video, man. I gotta do a
for real.
Yeah, because you already said it. You already answered all of that. You know what I'm saying? I don't know.
If I can see the picture in your head, bro, of the chart of like how everyone connects, bro, like that would be amazing, bro. For real. For real. The chart in your head is nuts, bro. For real.
All right, cool. Let's get this done.
Yeah, and Ngozi be tripping me out how we can just rattle off haplogroups like it's nothing, bro. But yeah, that seemed to be like one of the major points of contention was that. So, as I understood their argument, they were stipulating that the Israelites who were putting their DNA through the world Gedmatch, like the MD2, etc., whatever, the world projects or whatnot, that they're linking up to Lemba. And Ngozi and Garfield were saying that they were linking up to the Lemba through their Bantu DNA and not through their Semitic DNA.
Right.
I asked a follow-up question to Ngozi that I'll probably ask to you at one point. Because I asked Ngozi, like, so what's your position on those same world projects also linking those same Israelites up to Yemenite Jewish, Ethiopian Jewish, and Moroccan Jewish DNA?
Right. So, can you hear me?
Yes, sir. 100%.
Yeah. So once again, when you start looking at Moroccan Jews, and this is all dealing with autosomal DNA, and so when you look at autosomally, the link there is like he stated is through the Bantu. So when you look at Jews, right, Bantu expansion. So when you look at Jews, Ethiopian Jews, they still autosomally have markers or subclats that we see, markers that we see that come back from the Bantu expansion. So just because they have out of Africa marker does not mean that they also don't bear to these type of markers that we see that are from Africa. So they have those markers too. So those are the markers that we have in common with them. You know what I'm saying? But when you start talking about markers that's outside of Africa, then that's when you start dealing with the Cohen gene, which is the J1C3 marker that we see, which is just not a Cohen marker. That's what they call it. But Arabians have that marker just as well too, because out of those markers come forth. From those markers come from J1 and J2. And so when we look at these are ancient markers, and so the Bantu expansion that he was talking about,
Mm-hmm.
basically is in that expansion. We will share markers with those that we see that are of the Ethiopians and also the Ethiopian Jews. So that's why it has that on there, the Lemba, basically the Lemba. I'm sorry, because
Okay.
they can't. So that's why it has that on there like that, because of that. So when you look at a Lemba also have what you call, they have mtDNA, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so within that mtDNA, as well as their Y DNA, Y chromosome DNA, then we see that they also have markers that we see that it comes down from those just as well. So we look at the mtDNA. Most people might say something like L3, haplogroups and stuff like that, which come up out of Africa and goes west. So these are these things that we will see that people will have also who's been in the Bantu expansion that are also have that type of admixture with those type of Jews just as well. So when you look at a Jew, he like when we talk about the European Jews, they have markers that we see that goes back to the Levant area on their Y chromosome on the paternal side, and they also have markers that they picked up that we see from Europe on their mtDNA. So those are examples that he was given that's what it's picking up. Now, if you if you if you look at the 23andMe, right, and like you can see, like when you like, I'm gonna pull up my kit that way. Let me you can see my kit and see that that's what's linking us basically together. If anything, through the Bantu expansion, more
So
so.
real quick, why are you pulling it up just to clarify for the people? Like, so it seems like you're saying the same thing Ngozi was saying to her. Like, he believed that there was the Bantu expansion and people going from west to east actually left a Bantu trace within the DNA of people in Ethiopia and Yemen, etc. Whatnot that and Morocco and all that the people claiming to be Israelites in America would be linking their DNA to via the Gedmatch and not the Semitic DNA. Is that correct?
Right. So
Okay.
yes, yeah. So that's what it would be, and that's what it looks like. That's why when you look at these different groups, like when you start talking about the Igbos, when they took those tests, they had mainly they didn't have really group any type of like autosomally, like they was you could see that they didn't have no DNA outside of Africa, but it was in Africa when it comes to that. So they would use the project that they would use because they know where they come from, and it's a less admixture. They would use what you call the Ethio Helix African
Mm-hmm.
one kit. And
Okay.
so when you look at when they recommend that you use if you have admixture, if you're an African and you have you've been in America, you have European descent, to use Ethio-Helix French, because that's a mixture of African and also when you start dealing with European. And so then let's say if you start dealing with on the worldwide view of things or whatever, and you know you have like Native American in you or something like that, then you can use the world one in a sense or whatever, because you know that you have Native American and those type of things. And so if you will get a more detailed, it'll be more detailed if anything, rather than you just so I'm just gonna pick the world, and then really somehow some way when it comes to African people, we all are connected to each other somehow some way, because we have markers that come out of Africa. And so those are the connections that we would have, that I would have with a Lemba, is basically those markers that come out of from the Bantu expansion that spreads from the west to the east in those areas. And mainly, me personally, I would pick up when it comes to L3 markers, because when you look at the maternal side of Ethiopian Jews and those who are Lemba, they have, and also some of the like it's not every, like, even though they have that Cohen mutation, right? Have a Cohen mutation that we see, they still would have picked up, other markers that we would have seen. They still would have picked up other things. And so a lot of those things that we're looking at, not every Ethiopian Jew basically, is that on their maternal side is basically just have Middle Eastern. You know what I'm saying? No, it's also majority on their maternal side, the women who are native of that land who they take on. So then when you look at their descendants, there's an admixture of those things. And so that admixture is what we see. And that J1C3 marker, or even them J markers that we see, with the oral tradition of those Lembas shows that they are related to those Jews just as well, because they come up out of, they have oral tradition saying that they come from a certain place, and we can actually trace that in the biblical text. So that's not something that we don't deny. Now, when it comes to people telling me or saying that I am Lemba or I'm this and that, you know what I'm saying, then that's where I had to say, nah, it would have to be through the Bantu expansion that we can see that that's on my this that has the admixture of that, rather than, because I don't have no type of Jew, you know what I'm saying? I don't have none of those things. I don't have no type of out of Africa markers, but European, and also you know, African. And I also have, I'm sorry, Native. I got Native American markers too. So let me show you something. Let me see. So copy this, and I'm gonna screen share. Show you mine.
And so while you're doing that, you're saying that the Ethio helix and the Ethio helix, is it the one with the French, Ethio French? That those are the correct ones for people of African descent to use from America.
Let me know if you can see my screen.
Yep.
All right. All right. So if you look at it, I put in my kit. I'm going to go to admixture heritage. Right hand side. I'm going to select Ethio helix. Right. Do that one first, and then put the kit in. And notice it has a drop down that says select the calculator's model to use. Now, you have Ethio helix K10 plus French. You have Ethio helix K10 plus Japanese. Ethio helix K10 plus Palestinian. Ethio helix K10 Africa only. So these are what they would use of African populations only. But this French, because I know I'm mixed with European and African, then I will pick this one right here. So when I click on that one, you see what it gives me. It gives me basically kind of matches with my Gedmatch. Nilo Sahara 3.4.
Oh, you mean your 23andMe?
Yeah, I'm sorry, my 23andMe. I'm sorry. North Africa, Muti, Pygmy, Eastern Bantu. And so if you notice with this Eastern Bantu, with this yellow right here, a lot of this right here deals with my L3 markers that I have on my mom's side. And when you start dealing with the Eastern Bantu migration. So when you look at on my 23andMe, what you'll see is that I have a lot of those L markers, L3 markers that you see on my mtDNA. And then when you start looking at the Khoisan, right? You see that Khoisan, then you see West Africa 53, Hadza, you know, Biaka, Pygmy, French. And if you look at the French, it kind of lines up because I'm like 13 or 14, so that's kind of similar. And then you have the Omatic, right, in that area, which is a small percentage. So then when you go to the Oracle, this is what they go to the Oracle, right? And if you look at the Oracle, it got, you know, basically the admixture results, West Africa, you know, and then it names the same thing. Then it goes single population sharing. So when you start looking at this single population sharing, this breaks down basically the distance, and the distance begin to start dealing with, like, the closer this distance is the closer you are to the people. There's people there that who you are genetically connected to, by way of when you start looking at these mutations. And so then you have the Huza, the Igbo, Yoruba, you know what I'm saying? You have all these different things. And so the farther the distance is, the distance you are when it comes to being genetically distant from these people. So a lot of these are, that we see shows that they have some shared. We have some we got some connect. We connected. We have some shared genes with each other. And then when you start looking at mixed mode population sharing, you start dealing with secondary population. So they start showing a certain distance. So when you start looking at certain people in Libya, certain French, Egypt, Egyptians, some of them have some of those markers that we see a subclass that come up out of from those people that come from the Bantu expansion just as well. So they share some of those markers. And this doesn't mean that I would have every marker that they would have. What it means is that they definitely share some of those markers coming up out of that expansion. That there is no Israelite or there is no Jew marker. So when somebody saying there's an Israelite, there's a Jew marker, that doesn't mean anything. But we all are related to each other some type of way, some form or some way, especially when you talk about Africans and where people come from. And so when you look at the Ethiopian Jews, or we look at the Lembas, when you start looking at the Ashkenazis, the Sephardic, all of these people, we look at the Sephardic Jews, they share genetics also with Europeans just as well, also with Africans. And so when you do a DNA test on the Sephardic, and what you're gonna find out is that they are connected to those people. They are connected to Africans, and so the portion that we see this of and it doesn't necessarily mean that that's just because I'm connected that's my immediate family, because that's not what that's really dealing with. Just showing that somehow, some way, crossing between from Africa to Spain and those different areas, they have some type of connection. Um, I think they say at least around about um, 1 to 3%. When you start looking at people that's in West European, South Europeans have African DNA, and so, but these people are not, they're not men your color, but they still have African DNA, but they're not my color. So then, okay, when you come up out of here, let's say, you go out of here. Let's go out of here.
Yeah, he threw us light skinned brothers under the bus real quick. Y'all heard that?
So then you go to put my kid in again.
So real quick with the Ethio K10 French, one, what's the K10, and two, what's the French aspect of it, just for people who don't know?
What's the K10 and what's the and that's what hold on, let me show you something real quick. It tells you what all this stuff is right here. Hold on. Okay. So I'm thinking it tells you right here when it says, you see right here when it says uh 10 components mode.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm thinking it has something to do with something dealing with components or something like that. If you say so, this program is based on the 4 ancestors Oracle version, and you can actually, it says questions about results to be sent to, tells you where to get the questions. Where you get the answers to your questions originally proposed by this guy right here. Then basically it says finish reading population data. 59 populations found, 10 components mode. So I'm thinking that's basically what that is, but I'm still learning some of this stuff because everybody has questions. They've been questioning this stuff about what is this stuff, or how do you read the oracles, or what mode should I use, basically. What method should I be at, basically. And so when you look at it, it says Ethio Helix K10 plus French 4 ancestors Oracle. And it says using one population approximation. I think so. This spreads up to 4 ancestor oracle, and if you look at it, let's see, I think it's basically the same, kind of like the same thing. So notice this is different right here. Now we're in Eastern Bantu. We're dealing with Eastern Bantu or West Africa. And so then once you deal with the world population using 2 population approximations, and these are more detailed right here than when you start using the other world thing. This is more detailed. Why? Because I know that this basically matches up more so with my kit that I put in there. If anything, I can actually see this matching up with my kit that I sent there, rather than when I put in the other one. Look at this other ETL here. Let's put in the.
And real quick with the French part, it just, from what I understand, it assigns your European DNA all to French, correct?
Yes.
Okay. So if I wanted to know what my European DNA was, I would have to take my kit number and put it into like a European project.
No. Hold on. If you have an admixture of French and what's called, now if you're European, then they have the Euro. There's a
right.
A
that's what I'm saying. Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
There's a project for that. So then I think they was using MDLP World, right? I think that's what they was using.
Yeah, click the drop down right quick, because I think there's 2 of them that they used. I think it was like
World.
I think it was MDPO World and MDPO or MDLP World, like 2 or 22 or something like that, I think.
All right, cool. So we're gonna try World first.
Okay.
And so when you look at MDLP World, you see it has Caucasus, Persia, Middle East, South and West Europe, Sub-Saharan, and Northeast European, Paleo-African, and Mesoamerican, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so then you see North Asia. But then you hit let's see what it says when you hit Oracle. So then you have Sub-Saharan Africa, 67%. Paleo-African. See, Middle East, 2.99. Mesoamerican. Melanesian, Indian, right? So then you get down here, you have single population sharing. So
hey, real quick. So did your 23andMe say that you had anything with the Middle East?
23andMe did only thing that they didn't show anything with the Middle East. Matter of fact, let me pull up my 23andMe and pull it up here.
So you're saying already is different than the 23andMe? Like,
yeah, already is it's different because I didn't have any Middle East on my 23andMe. And let's see something real quick. See if I can put it up on the screen right here. Let's see. 23andMe. Where's it at? Here it is.
So while you're looking for that, as I understand it, one of the pushbacks from the Israelite community was that I saw 2 discrepancies, one from the UA community and one from the Israelite community. One, that the UA community was saying that the Israelites were using the wrong project to put their kit numbers in. But I also saw a pushback from the Israelites talking about that the Ethiopia projects didn't have all of Africa in there. It just focused mainly on East and West Africa.
Right. I don't.
Yeah.
I don't think that it focused mainly on East and West Africa. And even if it did focus just mainly on East and West Africa, that's what the mainly that this this focused on.
Mm-hmm.
If you look at the Lemba, Bantu, Yoruba, I'm saying
Mandinka.
Dinka, Ethiopian, so it's kind of
Yeah.
like. But then when you look at the they say it didn't focus more. I don't see that there. Let me see. Hold on.
Yeah. So one of the things that I heard one of the Israelites say on camera was that that in the Ethio helix that Lemba's not there. That Lemba's only in the MDLP world project.
Right. So let's say, for instance, even if the Lemba is there, right? If it's not
Mm-hmm.
there,
Mm-hmm.
all this is showing is basically is that if you look at it, that the on the world project,
Mm-hmm.
see, notice it says Eastern Bantu, West Africa, French. It says North Africa right here. So you can't say it's not focused on that because it's on here. I'm saying you have North Africa on here, you got East Africa, you got West Africa.
Okay.
So
basically, you're saying like if it link me up to Lemba and like Moroccans and Ethiopians on the one, it should match me up on that on this one, correct? Is that what you're saying?
right.
Okay.
So it says so if you know that you come from they say if you know that you come from these populations for certain that you come from your mother and father come from these populations.
Mm-hmm.
They have up to one population approximation and up to 4. If you know specifically or for certain that they come from these would you can use these, but if you you can use it, but if you don't know, then what happens is you it's not detailed and it could be off. It definitely could be off. Like when you start looking at mines, it's because basically what it's just dealing with is the expansion of these Bantu people that we see expanded to these areas, and you can look that they have genetics that we see. So they're African. You know what I'm saying? And so what we the people we call Africans today, that's what they are. So and they have that. And so we're African. So we have that. But that we don't when we start talking about those out of Africa markers, that's not saying that you have markers that trace back to the Levant area or markers that trace over to Arabia. That's not saying that you have that. That's saying that a portion of these Jews that we see, a portion of these Lembas have a portion of African DNA that comes off the continent of what we call the continent of Africa today. And when you start dealing with them other markers, that's when you have to look at it and have to say, even among Jews, even among you have Jews that have, like for instance, you got a brother that say that he's an Israelite, but
Mm-hmm.
he has a West he has a West Europe haplogroup. I'm saying, and so that doesn't make no difference. It's just showing that you have some connection with these people. You know what I'm saying? You have some connection with these people, but that they need to find out, do they have because if you're an Israelite, biblically, Israelites would have picked up markers out of Africa markers because they wasn't in Africa the whole time. So they would have picked up markers they would have seen of certain markers of the Arabs would have had, the mingled people that we see. Also certain markers that people of India, like when you look at the Koshin Jews have markers on the empty DNA that relates back to people who are of India, that are native to those lands that are in India, and also on their paternal side, they have markers that go back to the Levant area. So so the connection that they would have so they would definitely have those connections that we see of those people of India and also the Levant area. So it's the same thing that you see with those who are from West Africa that will have a connection with those that are Lemba. Why? What is the connection there? The connection there is that you see that the Lemba also have African markers, and we share those African markers with them because we all come from Africa. And so, but the Lemba have something other than African markers that we see, and that's when we see most of their males have that J1C3 marker, and also markers that trace back from Arabia, Yemen. It's like a Yemenite Jew, a Yemenite. I mean, well, I'm sorry, a Yemenite, a Yemen.
Mm-hmm.
You have a Yemenite, or you might have a Yemenite Jew.
Mm-hmm.
Just because you have a Yemenite Jew doesn't mean that those who are from Yemen will have the same how can you say it same frequency as when you start looking at what's going. That's when we start talking about SNPs of what they call single nucleotide polymorphisms and what they call SNPs. And so they will use these SNPs that we see um, from gathered populations to see the frequency within these, and these are basically dealing with certain type of like uh, uh, sometimes the frequency will change, and they can look at the changes of those frequencies by using a biological clock. And so, how long would it take for those frequencies to change? And so, some of those frequencies to be similar to the next person, whether if they was a certain type of mutation or whatever the case may be, or even when you start dealing with phenotypes. You know what I'm saying, at one because parents, they pass these things down, and so you can look at those the SNPs, and you can see those type of things. So when they gather that information from these different populations, they can see these different how these different mutations, or how people are morphing, or how they change, and look at the different frequencies. And so when you look at that, doesn't mean that you are basically like you're saying that I'm a um you like these people looking at this is saying, well, I'm a Lemba, you know what I'm saying? Nah, the Lemba and you share something that has something in common, and that is African DNA. But when you start talking about the Lemba that have this J1C 3 markers, which they call the Cohen marker, which is really before Cohen. You know what I'm saying? That marker always been here. It comes out of markers that we see, J markers. Then they also have, I think, if I'm not mistaken, Lembas also have is it I think I think G or T markers or something like that.
T.
Those are, yeah, T. So those are markers that we have to look at too, just as well, and say, well, do they have these markers? But definitely, Lemba have African markers. And if I'm not mistaken, I'm telling you, it's the L3 is what we're gonna have in common with the Lemba, and that marker that we see L3 comes out of Africa. It comes out of Africa, and that marker travels into uh, Asia and those other areas, but mainly it's an out of Africa marker. That's where it comes from.
Okay.
And so when you saying if somebody picking up outside of Africa markers, then that's when you start looking at stuff like different type of J's, T's, K's, you know what I'm saying, I's and stuff like that. Those type of markers. Then when you start looking at subclasses that come up out of E, those are things that we have to look at and say that, are these people the same that they Israelites? Do they carry these markers? Because Israel would have came from these places. So you should share some of these markers with some of these people. You should be genetically close with them, related to them, and sequence somewhat similar as these very people. And they come up out of these areas that we see. It's in the Levant area, it's in Arabia. You can see those migrations, and you can actually see the biological clock when you look at within them where they migrated, certain migrations, and over time how they changed, and how they became morphed into different, mutated into different subclasses and stuff like that.
So if I understand you correctly, you're saying if the Israelites do link to these other Israelite populations, that they should also show similar mutations in their genetics.
Yep, and some of those mutations will be it's out of Africa markers that we see, whether it's dealing with
Okay.
sexual selection, diet, climate, sexual selection. Is when you start dealing with, you can start picking up these different types of how you say it, uh, phenotypes. These different types of
Hmm.
phenotypes you see through sexual selection. So they eyes might be a little different. You go to Asia, eyes a little bit more tighter, hairs a little bit more straighter, and so these different things like that. So that's when they start dealing with using from these different populations start dealing with single nucleotide polymorphisms, or what we call SNPs. What they'll say that's a SNP. They use these things to look at these the different frequencies, and when something would have changed from one point of time to the next point of time.
Okay. Can you click on your oracle on that on the Ethio 10 so I can see if I understand what you're saying?
Okay, so this ETL 10 right here, so let's click on Oracle 4. And so if you look at it, it's going to say
Yeah.
West
Okay.
Africa, Eastern
Yeah.
Bantu.
Let me scroll down just a little bit so I can see the list right there. Yeah. So on the MDLP world, it was saying that you were connected to Yemen and Morocco and Ethiopia and whatnot, but you don't see that on this. So what you're saying is that like um, there's tribes that are on this list that would have like been involved in like the migration to those areas, etc. Whatnot is what you're saying.
Right, and so those extend a little bit farther, get a little bit more. Um, they get they do get a little bit more like to where it's showing you other on the world, like other, you know, they listen in the world of other populations. But those populations that what I was looking at, they was telling you to use those populations if you know what you come, because it said notice it says using one population approximation.
Mm-hmm.
So when you start looking at the Kaba, the Husa, the Igbo, Yoruba, these are all in Africa too. But the Fulani, you know what I'm saying? Uh, you even have Bantu South Africa. So this uses this Africa also um uses that too. Uses South Africa, West Africa. You know the world population is basically you have, yeah, you do have the Lemba on there and showing you that, well, the Lembas on there through the expansion just as well too.
Mm-hmm.
But we know why that's connected like that. But they said that they recommend that if you have an admixture of European and also Africans, you use Heliox K10. Now, let me see something, because I never looked at the other. I never looked at African only because I'm not African only, so I
Mm-hmm.
wouldn't use that because I'm not African only. It's because you got Helix. All right, so you click that, then you have African only. So this is something that they recommend that you don't use this if you're not African only. So then when you use it, you can see it's dealing with North Africa, West Africa, Khoisan, East Africa to Nilo-Saharan. You know what I'm saying?
Oh yeah,
Dealing,
made all your friends DNA. Another one like North African, basically.
yeah,
Interesting.
basically. Then you go to Oracle, West Africa, North Africa, Muti, Pygmy, Mubuti, Pygmy, East Africa 2, Khoisan, Africa 1, right? So then as you look at it, it says least squares method using one population approximation. So you can see right here what it has using four populations approximations. So they use four populations, and so this is specifically if you know that you are this. This one you will start using these using two population approximations, using three populations approximation. They'll tell you that if you know specifically that you are this one you will start using these oracles. If you know specifically that's what you are, then you can go straight to the oracle, and that's what it'll do. But it says finish reading population data, 58 populations found, 10 components mode, 10. So you use 58 populations, right? So
Mhm.
then, let's see.
Here's where I get confused, though, right? Like, so if let's say you put your DNA into the MDLP world, and like, so yours came up with Ethiopian Jewish, and Moroccan, and all that type of stuff, right? So if I put it in the all African one or any of the Ethiohelixes one, how come the Ethiopian Jewish doesn't come up there? Like you're saying, like I hear what you're saying about the migration, like it connects you to the whatever Bantu DNA, whatever migrated that way, whatever. But why would it not also say Ethiopian Jewish on there if they have the Bantu DNA?
Well, because I think that mainly you say if they have the Bantu DNA, why
Mm-hmm.
wouldn't it say that on there?
Yeah,
I
what like so
think
like
I think the world deals with more of populations. That's what it's looking like. It's dealing with more because let's see how many you look at.
yeah, but like so if I connect to Ethiopian Jewish in the world, right? Should I not also connect to Ethiopian Jewish through even if it's through the Bantu DNA? Should I not also connect to the Ethiopian Jewish on the Ethio if it's there? Like so that's one of the questions that's being raised by the Israelite side is they're saying that the Ethiopian Jewish and the Lemba etc. and the Moroccan Jewish are not on the African lists or not on the Ethiohelix lists.
Well, mainly because I think that's if you know that you have mainly if people know that they have I have some type of let's see why is this I have some type of ancestry. You know what I'm saying? It comes from those ways. I know for without a shadow of doubt that this is where this come from.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's when they use this MDLP because that's what they were saying. But they were saying that they recommend. Like if you look at this world thing right here, let's see how many populate. So this deals with it's dealing with the whole. It's dealing with the basic Middle East, South and West, and then so when you go into the Oracle, let's see what it's saying. It says how many populations they use. Using 2 populations. So if you look at it, it says finish reading population data where we was using 58 populations. They used 257 populations found in 12 components mode, right? So that's what they're saying. 12 components mode. So they're using a total of 257 populations found, right? So they use it. So the world is a larger database. It's definitely a larger database.
Mm-hmm.
And so then when you look at it, it says, I think when they start talking about the Lemba, it says 14.41, whatever. You know what I'm saying? That means that because of this, like I say, I think that Whatchcall explained it pretty well, and I think Kevin talked about it too when he came on the Berean show.
Mm-hmm. We're going to do a part 2 with Kevin. Kevin wasn't feeling too well tonight, so whenever he's feeling better, we're going to have him come through and do a part 2.
Right. So then when you look at Puerto Rican, Australian, notice it says like 74. Well, I think this is not even percent. This is just basically I'm thinking this distance. I don't know what that is, but I think that's I don't know if that's percent or whatever, but it says 74. And so it says Bantu, Yoruba, Mandinka, Ethiopian, you know what I'm saying? And so I'm guessing if these are basically let's see what it says. Threshold component set to 1.0, threshold of method set to personal data has been read 20 approximations mode. This program is based on 4 ancestors Oracle version. So it says using 1 population approximation.
Would you see it as a legit discrepancy if the Ethiohelixes do not have the Ethiopian Jewish and Moroccan Jewish and the Lemba in their listings?
You say if they didn't? No, I wouldn't really see it as a discrepancy because, as I said earlier, we all related to each other some type of way. And but I think the Ethiohelix deals main, so it has they said it's more detailed. So, like, let me show you something real quick. Hold on. because I'm gonna show you what they said in their words, because they would know of anything besides us. I'm gonna stop screen sharing. I'm gonna pull something up. They would know before we would know of anything. And when I was watching uh, Garfield's thing, Garfield brought up something. I mean, the guy brought up something that was a great point of the Dagger Squad, and when he got the letter back from these guys, he got a letter back from these guys, email, and when they got the letter back from the email, it specifically said, you know, they would it's you should we recommend they recommended that you use the project, you know what I'm saying, to the guy who, because of what he
Right.
told him.
Yeah, the site did recommend that we use the Ethio helixes, etc.
Right. So if they recommend that, they recommended it for a reason, and people are doing otherwise than that, and that's how they get, because they said it's more detailed. You have more
Mm-hmm.
detail because really we all connected some type of way. So when you start getting enough to more detail, then it better helps. You know what I'm saying? And that's why they recommend it, because if you start looking at the Lemba, you start looking at those different projects, yeah, you connected to them some type of way, but it's not getting real with the jot and tittle of really where your families really come from, like where, I mean, where, you know, how you can really link them. It's not doing that. It's basically, you know, giving you the world populations with 257, and somehow we all connected some type of way. I'm
Mm-hmm.
saying either way it go. But when you start dealing with the ones that you see that's linked up with your kit and the Ethio helix and what's called, then it gives you basically the ones that are more detailed that you need, the one that are more close that you need, that you know, like this is actually my people. Like that actually matches up with my 23andMe. When I read their chart, it matches up. That's when you know. Like if I start like Australian and stuff like that, come on, man. Like you got to be kidding me. Like I mean, my 23andMe don't say nothing about no Australian on there, but there possibly is somebody that is in Australia that carries African DNA, and so that's what they basing this off of. Somebody in Australia is carrying African DNA, so therefore they took it from that population, and that's why it shows the far distance that it does show, showing that somebody in that area has African DNA or the same DNA that I have, or something similar to me, or you know, it's a genetic connection basically. But it's not giving you everybody connected in some type of way when you begin to. It's like when you deal with what's called saying that he's from Russia.
Mm-hmm.
He has some people from Russia, but he doesn't have any people from Russia like that. But somebody from Russia has uh, DNA that he has. Let me see, where is it at? So that's why I say I can't look at that and say, "Oh, I'm Lemba" or this and that. Nah, we all come up out of that Bantu expansion, so therefore we're gonna share something genetically with each other. I'm saying, and I think that's the connection that we have. It's an African connection, basically, more so than a person saying that this is a. Now, if you talk about a person that has markers that's outside of Africa, then you making an argument then. But when you making an argument, as far as black people in America, the more the markers that you really see is you start to see markers is, you know, that this African markers that and the European markers, if anything,
Mm-hmm.
and the European is at 12 to 14%. That's average. You know, you might have a couple of Native American markers. You know what I'm saying? Autosomal DNA. That's it. But you ain't your people's is African. You know what I'm saying? Majority of your DNA, you got 87%, 88% African. You know what I'm saying? And the little admixture that you had is probably somebody coming down the line mixing with your ancestor. You know what I'm saying? But still, you know, you still are 88 to 83 to 88% African. That means all your markers come out of Africa, and the little bitty stuff that you do have, when you go and you go look at take a test of those who are saying that they Ashkenazi Jews, they have markers that come out of the Levant area. I think like they have levels of 40 to 70 some percent, and then on their maternal side, 80 some percent of those of the maternal is European. So they let you know they took on European wives, and but they come from the Levant area. So I'm not like, all I'm saying is I'm not the greatest when it comes to explaining this stuff, but I do know you can't just be looking at this stuff and saying, well, I'm this, and get to playing with Gedmatch and saying to do this. Now we didn't have Africans on both sides that explain this stuff differently, and it's always these ones that have this ideal of I'm an Israelite, you know what I'm saying, or we the Israelites. But then when you start looking at their markers, you start looking like, bro, you ain't really got nothing that goes outside of Africa like that. Where is this show?
So I know that we've talked earlier. I know at least it used to be your position. I don't know if it still is that some people, some African American people in America, possibly do descend from Israelites. Not all, but like there's some people do.
Yeah, possibly they do. Like when you start, like, I don't know if you looked at like for instance, like if you look at Ngozi.
Mm-hmm.
Ngozi is one of them. Ngozi has markers that we see, you know, on his 23andMe, to where he can actually say that he related to these people. You know what I'm saying? He related to these different groups. He have markers that come up out of North Africa. You know, he has European markers, and he also has he's related to also Jews, different Sephardic and Ashkenazi, if I'm not mistaken. And so he has those markers, and so that's not saying that he is an Israelite, but what that's saying is that his people, where they come from, like the migration, like the patterns of the geographical locations that we see, he could say that his ancestors, basically he has markers that's outside of Africa, as well as America, mainly in those areas that we start saying North Africa, Europe, and also the Levant area. He got the markers, and they high markers. They're not really well, these are low markers. Now they up there to where you look and say, dang, like, you know, I know people who have markers that come out of those areas, K markers, T markers, you know, all these different type of markers that we see that comes out of these very areas. Because when you start looking at black people, a lot of black people in America, they don't have those markers. They don't have those things. They got markers specifically related to Africa and Europe, basically, and some of them Native American, because in South America, in those areas.
Okay, so something that's intriguing to me is when I was looking at your well, you were pulling up on the Ethio-10 and the whole African thing, like if you're 100% African. Like, so for me, I know that I have, like, my mother descends from Maghrebi and Sephardic Jews, and she's also Native American, she's also European and whatnot. So when if I do the Ethio-10, if they don't have Moroccan, Jewish, etc. on there, it seems like it would just throw me into the French DNA. You know what I'm saying? Like, to me, that would seem like it would be a discrepancy. Like, so if I put my DNA in the MDLP world and I have Moroccan Jewish there, but if I go into the Ethio helix for the African only, and it throws me into the French or just the North African.
Right. So they have something for you, because you know that you have Jew, and you have something for you that you will go to, and that is the where's it at?
Yeah, Salam was saying, like, I was having a bill with Salam on the War Machine channel. She came on with Yuk, and I was having a conversation on there at one point, and She was saying it was more appropriate for me to use the MDLP world because of my mixture, right?
Yeah, because of your mixture. So you will have, let me see, you will go to, see, it will be for you because, and then they will tell you, like, let's say, for instance, you hit the, let's see something. Where is it at? It's on her somewhere.
But if that's, here's my point. Like, so if that's more appropriate for me to use, right? And I come up with Jewish markers on a whole bunch of sites from within Africa, right? But I go into the Ethio helixes, and those African Jews are not on the list for me to even match up with it. To me, that seems like it's a discrepancy that needs to still get fixed within the site, because it doesn't seem like it's completely accurate there. Does that make sense?
No, I think it, like, you will have to put your kid in and see. It'll make sense if you put your kid in, because it's something else that's here, and I forgot what it is. Just on here. Hold on.
Yeah, I'll do a show about that one day.
Let me find it. It's something else that's on here. Let's see. Where is it at? For the Jew, if you know that you are, where is it at? Right here. Let's continue. They're making me do this crap. They're making me verify some crap. I ain't even gonna worry about it. When you do it too much.
Right. But so as far as you understand, when if I put my kit number into the Ethio helix or into the 100% African, as far as you understand, are you saying that it has all the African regions and tribes from all their lists of Africa on there, or no?
I wouldn't say that it, like, when you put it in the Ethio helix, I wouldn't say that it has all of them, because you're gonna get more populations with the with, when, as you're saying, it had 25700 population, so you can use that one, but it's just not as more detailed as you would get with knowing. Basically, when you look at it's not going to really line up too much. It's going to give you a broad. It gives you a broad. It's broad, but at the same time, where it get confusing that, because it doesn't get down to the nitty gritty what you need. Because really, like I said, we all connected some type of way. So it's going to give you basically those populations that you see that's there, and possibly a little bit more. But
so do you feel like 257 populations is enough? Because just in Nigeria alone, they got 250 different ethnic groups.
Well, that's basically that is enough for what you need. You know what I'm saying? That's more than enough for what you need. But
see, that's what I'm saying. There's more than 257 ethnic groups in Africa. Does that make sense?
Right. And so from these major groups that we see this in, like I said, I don't know why they have if they have a sequence everybody or something. Maybe they getting more in their database. Maybe that's what they're doing. But that could be what they're doing. They get more people in their database.
Right. So to me, that's something that's still up in the air that needs to get clarified by the site. That I don't think anybody's asking them in terms of who's on the lists. And so for instance, right, on the Ethio 10, with the French, right, with the K10 French, it's not like, so you're not all French and European, right? So like it will assign you to French even though you're not French on all of it, right? So to me, it seems like they have a pattern of assigning you to whatever's closest to whatever they have on their list. Does that make sense?
Right. So
for me, that one's kind of, for me, it's still up in the air, but that's just how I see it for right now.
Yeah, like I say, this stuff is not absolute, but if you gon' really go with it, then you're gonna have to look at what you know that you know.
Right.
That way you can verify that and say, I know that I'm European and African. I know that at least. You know what I'm saying? And so that's why I put in that. And so then when you do the World Project does have more, but it's giving you something that's vague, because it's basically telling you that you're connected with these people. But then when you start looking, you also connect with people in other areas, but it's not giving you basically like the jot into the detailed of it. Like
yeah, so you're saying that the MDLP world ain't telling you the whole story. It's like,
it's not really giving you the whole story. Like they'll say, well, because any, like
when you look at it, like as Ngozi was explaining, it's telling you that there is a connection between you and the Lembas, right? There is a connection, but then that connection that we see it comes from the Bantu expansion, and it comes from, or it could come from that you might be. But if it's not saying Jew on that other one, if it's not saying that there, then you know that if it didn't say that there on that kid, then it's not, you're not that. What that's saying is that you're connected to them another type of way, and that's through the African that's through the Bantu expansion. They have similar connections or ties genetically to you, as within those groups that we see. Now, if it's telling you on your other DNA on your kit, if it's telling you that you have those things, then you can see that, because the guy gave an example of somebody who was a Falasha, but at the same time, he didn't you could tell that um he didn't have markers that we see that was of other when you look at his sheet, other Jews and stuff like that. But he was a Falasha, but he was no Falasha Jew. But he had these markers, you know what I'm saying, certain markers, but it wasn't, where it connected with these other Jews was that they had African markers too. So that's what it's picking up. It's mainly picking up. But when you start dealing with the groups that just dealing pertaining with your kid, then it's more of a detailed and giving you more how can you say it, more accurate results. Your results are more accurate because it's telling you where this it's where this come from, and this is this, rather than you just getting where everybody really come from here. And so we all share something with each other. Basically we all share, but we all share something that's African, basically, when you start boiling down to it and you get down to it. And so everybody that this in the Ethiohelix, or everybody who is African, they're gonna have the Lemba, and also these other groups are gonna have those genes. They're gonna make up some of those genes that you have. Why? Because we all are African. You know what I'm saying? So if you're a Hamite, whatever you want to say you are, or you an Israelite, you're gonna have that. You're gonna have some people that's in South Europe, which are just deal with Japheth. They got that. They got African markers too. So that's how we related to them in a sense. But in reality, that's a little bit more distant. You know what I'm saying? The farther you get the when you go world, you get a lot of distance. You get more distance, if anything. Like when you start looking at my Australian, what do you get? You just get distance. You know what I'm saying? That's very far distant, 74, 75%. And I'm looking like I ain't got no Australian or none of that, but somebody in Australia shares African DNA, just like I shared African DNA, with
So are they saying that you're Austronesian, or that you're connected to the Europeans in Australia?
that could be that too, just as well. That could be that because you have, you know, that could be that because the way they
Mm.
traveled, the way they would have traveled across,
Okay.
if they was traveling across that land bridge up there, um, they could have traveled that way by the coastlines and came out that way from West Europe up there, and came across. So that could be that just as well. We don't know, but evidently there's something that's there. But that's broad. That's super broad. That's distant. Like ain't nothing that I'm really concerned or really worried about. You know what I'm saying? But that's how it should be explained. It should be explained in that way of how it's not really giving you detailed. Now your 23andMe is giving you, it gives you detail. Then when you jump to your project, but they telling you go to what you know what I'm saying? They recommended that. So you would say, well, why did they recommend that? Why would they recommend that? Now, if you like in your what you have,
Hmm.
if you have what you say that you have, then of course you would go world. You know what I'm saying? Now,
Right.
there's nothing wrong with going world, but it's not giving you what's called more detail. Now, you would have to go worldwide because you got some stuff going on with you. You know what I'm saying? You got a whole lot of stuff going on. So you gotta do that, you know what I'm saying? Whereas when it start dealing
Right.
with me, you already know I'm coming from like two, you
He
know,
said, "Big Ham out in the building."
yeah, big Hamite in the building. So then
So
I'm gonna
real
tell you
quick,
what,
there's a question I get asked quite a bit that I wanted to make sure I ask you before I forget. So,
uh,
being that you feel that some African Americans could be connected to Israelites from West Africa, etc., whatnot, do you feel like that they found all of the West African tribes that are connected to Israelites? Like, so right now, I hear a lot of people talk about just like maybe the Igbo, maybe the Yoruba, you know what I'm saying? But they never go beyond that. Do you feel like that's
I
accurate or
think
no?
a lot of those people are really more so, if anything, converts. This Igbo and all of them, I think they converts. And really, to be honest, I think that more so that Europeans, Jews, are going around telling people that they Israelites for politicking, you know what I'm saying, purposes, basically.
Hey, go on. Hey, so go on and say it then. Say that the West African genetics that you connect to, you know what
Yeah,
I'm
well,
saying,
most
connects you to a convert. Don't it connect you to a real Israelite? Go on and
yeah,
say it,
yeah,
Deacon.
yeah. Most West Africans, I believe, are converts. When you start dealing with some, and reason why I say that is now when you start dealing with some, you do have it
Mm-hmm.
to where some of them may be Jews. You know, they might share something genetically with people outside of Africa that we see that in the Levant areas and these other areas. But for
Mm-hmm.
the most part, these people are converts, and the reason why they're converts is because you got three worlds that come into Africa, which is the Europe, the Christians. You got also those who were saying they was Christians. You got those who are Judeo Christians. You got those who are Jews, who did we see that the Igbos and a lot of them, you know what I'm saying? I'm saying that a lot of them, you know, they have these type of customs, whether they first temple or second temple customs, then they do certain things, and it look like they've been taught by Jewish people. Then you have also, and the Jewish people and these Europeans are the ones who write in their history. Then you have also Arabs. So this is ran by three worlds, basically, or four worlds: Judeo Christians, Jews, and Christians and Arabs. That's who it's ran by. So they would come to the West, and they would make converts out of those people that was in the West. Why? Because they're more advanced than those people who are in the West. They have their weaponry is what's called. That's why when you start looking at certain writings of these Europeans, they say that these Jews that were in Negro land was more numerous and wealthy. So then, how does that play with the narrative of those that are going around saying that these curses follow them? It doesn't really play that well if they want to use that type of narrative. They can't really say that Ashkenazi Jew or Sephardic Jew is not a Jew because they have wealth. Why? Because it just told you that these Jews that was in Africa that was black, these Jews was wealthy and numerous. And so really to me, I think that these are Jews that we see that are in West Africa that were black, it was made converts. And I think the Jews that came from Sephardic Jews and Ashkenazi Jews are the ones that was spreading this stuff to them, as Jews that was also prior to that going making converts out of these people. That's what it seems like on Africans. And then it was Christians, supposed Christians that was doing the same thing, spreading their religion. Then you got also Arabs pushing, trying to take over basically the continent of Africa and taking over those who are less fortunate when it comes to weaponry and stuff like that, and education. That's what they do. That's what governments do. That's what civilizations do to prey on those when they're looking for new worlds, and to help people to help them build the new world. So that's what I see. We start coming into Native America. When we start coming into America,
Mm-hmm.
South America, North America. Those are the same things that you see. You see these different worlds. They looking for slaves, servants, land, gold, different types of material, and they using these people and they spread their religion to them. They convert them. They make them out of converts. That's
Mm-hmm.
what I see that happens in West Africa, North Africa. eventually started in the East, you know what I'm saying, spread it over from Asia, spread it everywhere, you know what I'm saying? And these Jews, they've been doing that type of stuff. They've been spreading, and that's what they've been doing. When you get over here, you start talking about these different writings among these Native Americans, that's because they come from Sephardic Jews and also Ashkenazi Jews, because when they left out, that's exactly what they was doing. How do I know that? When you get down to the Koshin Jews, the Sephardic Jews sailed as far as where the Koshin Jews was, which left during the first temple period, and they began to live by the Koshin Jews. But they were selling everywhere. They were selling around the coast. They had slaves and everything. Sephardic Jews had slaves, and so when you talking about Ladino, Spanish Hebrew, then Hebrew is not just an Israelite thing. Hebrew is what was spoken of people that was in you got Western Semitic languages, Eastern Semitic languages. These are not just Israelite languages. And so when you do look at these languages and you look at also the people who's carrying these things, you got to start looking at the Spaniards, because a lot of these people was also had been what do you call they a lot of these people have been they was converts just as well. A lot of these people was converts, and they would have been coming over here doing certain things, writing certain things, literature, all types of stuff, as we know that they've been doing. You know what I'm saying? They've been doing this for the longest, as well as Jews. You know what I'm saying? So then there is black Jews. How do we know that there is black Jews? Why? Because Israelites have been spread to the four corners of the earth. And if that is the case, then like for instance, have you seen Judah of Nazareth? Have you seen his kids and his family?
Yes, sir.
Those kids do not look black. And so we have to realize that if we say that he's an Israelite, right? He went and got him a woman that was from Japan. When he took that woman, his kids came out looking more so like that woman than him. And they look like him, but they look more so like Japanese, if anything. And so now, if he's an Israelite, you have a descent of a black man, but his kids look Japanese. And so what happens when his kids take on women that are not, but when they take on women that are not black, and also the woman takes on a man that is not black, guess what you're going to have? A descent of people that are black, but has Japanese. Why? Because they have maternal DNA and paternal DNA within them. So those people, they look they're gonna look more so like the people that are native to that land. It's the same thing with the Koshin Jews. They don't look though. When you pull up a Koshin Jew, those people are not black. They're not black, but they have Israelite descent. And we say, if you're saying that Israelites are black, these people are not black, and they came back to the land in 1948. They start coming back to the land in 1948. Not only that is they look like the people who are native in that land. That's why they didn't know they was Israelites. But when they looked at the customs, they was like, these people got Israelite customs. Then when they did a test, they started realizing that these people are genetically they closest to people who's in the Levant area. And so the only way the only way you can see something like that happening is if they took on women that was in those areas, and they began to look like the women, the natives that was in the land. Koshin Jews, you can go look them up. They look just like the Jews. I mean, look like just like India people. Go look them up.
Okay, so now that we stuck our toe in the water, we might as well jump all the way in, right? So if the Ashkenazis and the Sephardic Jews converted West Africans to Judaism, when did this happen, and who did they convert? Hello? Can you? G-Con, can you hear me?
Speak Ladino and also Spanish.
Okay, we start that over because we couldn't hear you from the beginning. You were it sounded like you didn't say that. Like, yeah, we can hear you now. So go ahead and start over. Right quick.
That would have happened. That would have happened during them migrating out of Spain, right, far as the Spaniards, and coming into Africa during that time.
What time period we talking about? We talking about the when they got
1492, and they was kicked out, but they was also kicked out prior to then. Because when you start looking at it, they was kicked out of Spain prior to then.
Okay.
And you start looking at it, the you got the Moroccan Jews.
Yeah.
So then you had to say, well, how long has the Moroccan Jews been there? The Moroccan Jews been there, I'm gonna say, since the expansion of when you start talking about the Moors. Because among the Moors, there was Jews among the Moors that was spreading out, that was spreading that when they was expanding then. You have the Moors who we see that there was Jews among them and that expansion. So we have to look at it and say that it was even prior to 1492, during them being kicked out of Spain, because prior to then, we see that in the biblical times, it was times where Jews was also expanded into Germany, expanded into Europe, Rome, all of those different places that was in the West. They was in those areas in the biblical text around the Mediterranean.
Okay,
So that's even before then.
we got to rewind that just a little bit because I thought I just heard you say that there was Jews amongst the Moors. So who converted them?
You said who? What?
You said that there was Jews amongst the Moors, correct?
Yes.
So did the Sephardic or the Ashkenazis convert them before they went up with the Moors in 711 AD, or no?
No, I think that they've been there. They just been there. These Jews, they've been there. Like,
okay, so who are the Jews that have been there, and who are the Jews that got converted?
We don't know what tribes. We don't know. I don't know what tribe. I just know that they was Jews. I don't know who converted. I just know that they was Jews. I just know that. Yeah. So when you start dealing with the Sephardic, the Sephardic would have been taking servants. We know they had servants, and also Ashkenazi Jews later on. They would have been also doing the same type of things.
You know, my phone gonna blow up for like a week straight about like, man, I'm trying to debate G-Con on this right now. You know what I'm saying? So like, man, please tell me you're available to debate this.
Right, that's cool. Like, I ain't got no problem with it.
I can already feel my phone blowing up from here, bro. Like,
right. And so that's all I'm saying is that they can't say, like, you can't say, like, they'll say that these people are, they'll say that they're, what he said, show the Joshua colonization among the Lemba are. And who is the elder? If you said they were Christians or Islamic, that would make more sense. But when did any of the judo conversion? Like he says, when did any of judo conversion through colonization occur, Jikan? That was. I mean, I don't know why he can't understand it. Like when you look at what happened in Africa, the fact there were many people that was being converted to Christianity. Is being converted also to being Jews, as well as what you call. That's why when you read the literature, it says that the Negroes that was in the land, that they didn't like the Jews because they was wealthy. The black Jews because they was wealthy and they was numerous. So you got what you have is you have black Africans that's looking at these wealthy Jews, because Jews take care of them people. I don't care if they black, whatever color they is. If they take care of them, and those people that was in those areas, they was wealthy, and it says they was numerous. And Dante Forson brought out a source that spoke that and said that, but he thought we missed that. I picked that up. It says they was wealthy and there was numerous. And so when you look at among these guys, among these, it was wealthy and numerous. These other Africans, they didn't like them. They didn't like them. They had a problem with these Jews that was wealthy and numerous that was in their land. You know what I'm saying? But they was being taken care. And guess what? It says that the colonists was more likely when they to take those people with them into servitude, or to take them with them into the New World. Why? Because they were smarter than the West Africans that was in those places. Why? And so for them to be smarter and be more educated, that would have mean that they had to have ties and close related to those people that was in Portugal and Spain. And when you start talking about the Levant areas, they would have had that information. Even if they was among the Moors, they would have had that information, because the Moors was very intelligent. You know what I'm saying? They was very intelligent. So when you start looking at, you had Arabs, you had Jews, you had within the Moors, you had all of these different people within the Moors. But these people was, when you start looking at the takeover of North Africa, of them swaying between Christianity or either Arabs, that goes all the way back when you start looking at 630 AD when they begin to start spreading, making their way. The Mohammedans started to spread and make their way and converting people. That's what Jews was told to do. They was told to convert people. So then when you say, well, these Jews went to West Africa, well, that's what they would have been doing. They would have been converting people. That's what they told to do, to go out and convert. And that's what they do. That's what Islam do. That's what the Jews did, and that's what Christianity did. Supposed Christians, that's what they did. They went to the West, and that's what they did in West Africa, North Africa, to the point to where you can see the division today. Africa is split up between Christians, between Jews, and also between Islam. If you look at they even have memes where you have Jews over Africa, you have Islam over it, and you also have Christians. All this is dealing with is politics. That's all. That's why they need an African connection. Why? Because if they got Africans that's in those places, then guess what? They got a place that's in those places. That's exactly what they did. That's politicking. That's all that is. So when you go and you look at these Jews that say they are Jews that are Igbos, that's just another Jew sitting his wicked behind over these black Africans trying to make claims on Africa. That's all he's doing. You know what I'm saying? He's always got his hand in something, and that's what they do. You know what I'm saying? And it's just another wicked Christian that's also trying to give place, that's in cahoots, is that we see that's saying that he's a Christian, European, whatever, and then also Islam. That's all they doing. The three major worlds that we see today is those. And that's all they did with Africa. So when a black man of America is saying that he's a Jew, he's only saying that why? Because his daddy did father him, whether if it was Christian or whether if it was a Jew or whether if it was Islam, had his hand in that. That's what this is about right here. They politicking. And that's a fact. And he'll say, well, what source? Come on, bro. There's plenty of sources. Most of the people that's writing about the history of Africans is Europeans and Arabs. That's a fact, bro. That's a fact. You can't get out of that. They're telling you about your history, about what's going on. They're Europeans and they're Africans. That's them. I mean, they're Islam, Arabs, basically. That's what they split Africa into. That's why when you look at the money mark, when you look at it, that's what you see right there. Islam, Christians, and also Jews. That's it. And when you look at black people that's been spread out, Africans that's been spread off into the world, that's what you see the majority of them off into. They're going to be off into Islam, either a Jew. Look at the rabbi this today that's using black, that's turning black men into Jewish people. Come on, bro. They only doing that to spread and thinking out that they won't be diminished within these lands. That's why they doing that, bro. And they was told to do that within the Bible. And I'm not knocking them for doing that because I think it's a smart idea. Why not go and get converts and increase in number? That's how you increase the nation of Israel. That's how you increase them.
I can tell you right now, I got a hunch you're going to get a phone call for me later on in the week. Trying to sit there with debate on this. Yeah, right. You know what I'm saying?
He talking about not until the Joshua of 1500 CE. The Roman Catholic Church sends missionaries to South Africa, but we, black Jews, recorded 1,000 years before then. Now, prior to then, this is what I'm saying. The Elder Yara is acting like they just got this idea in 1500 CE. This way of life, I just gave him the Mohammedans. When you start talking about empires spreading out, that's what an empire is. They spreading out, taking over areas. Nebuchadnezzar, he spread it out all the way to Libya. So when you look at Islam and you look at Christianity, that's what they was doing. This ain't no 1500 CE type of thing, bro. This thing happened prior to the 1500s, when you start looking at Jews doing these very things. This happened prior to that. When you start looking at them spreading out and Muhammad and them, and then start looking at also Christianity spreading out. Christianity was in Ethiopia, Then it started to push. People start to push west. Now did it start to get more how can you say it, more political in the 1500s? Yeah, because it wasn't enough room. It wasn't enough room when you start looking at Europe, when you start looking in certain areas. So of course they're gonna spread. That's when they start really spreading to the west. But for the most part, yes, it was an expansion prior to that. But even in 1500, it still was the same thing, the same ideals, the same thing is going forth. Nothing different, bro. It's just them taking over the raw resources that we see this in Africa, because basically they have they're using more of their raw resources that we see is in Europe, you know what I'm saying, and it's in Asia. So when you go to a continent that you see a people that is not, that don't cherish certain things how you would cherish those things, and ignorant of those things, because they're to the point to where they don't know that you can use these certain things for certain types of advanced technology. They're not looking at those things. They still just wearing gold and for fashion and stuff. Where these guys are taking these things and breaking these different metals down, and these different dealing with nuclear physics and stuff like that. So I don't know why you don't see that. Like that history is definitely there. So it ain't nothing like.
Hey, so real quick, I'm gonna change gears just a little bit, and I'm gonna ask you a question that I asked. I just started doing a smoke session. No, go ahead and get it, bro. Go ahead.
Hey, brother. Go ahead.
Okay, yeah. Yeah, I'm gonna play another clip from when I was on the Dagger Squad and ask you the same question that I asked Garfield right quick. Let's get it right quick. I believe it's this one here.
Orthodox Moore, you had a question that you wanted to ask, and we skipped over you. So go ahead and then
after. The two quick clarification questions. So one, Brother Ngozi, what is your position on the Gedmatch projects that tell the people that say they're connected to Lemba that those particular projects also match them up to Yemenite, Ethiopian, and Moroccan Jews? And the second question to Garfield, was it your position earlier that no East Africans were taken into the transatlantic slave trade into the West?
Yeah, my position is that, I mean, there were people taken from north, but not from the east. There's some few people taken from the north, not necessarily from the East Africa. East Africa people were taken in the during the time when the Muslims were in charge. They did take them to several different places. You know, that's why when people talk about the 400 years, you got to be careful, because there's the people from the east that were taken on ships. So if they want to play that game, and they've been in the land for over 400 years as slaves. So these are things that's going on outside of our world that's happening on that side of the continent. All right. But as far as taken to America, I'm not aware of that. Maybe that's something that I missed in school, but I don't know about that. Ngozi, the next question.
I was going to say again, even those people that you talk about that were stripped from East Africa, the Arabians took, or some of them that possibly came through the Portuguese and traded somewhere in the Iberian Peninsula with the British or whatever, they were primarily Bantu speakers. You're not going to find a Habesha slave over here. You're not going to find a Somali slave over here. You're not going to find a Oromo slave over here. You're not going to find an Nilotic slave over here. You find primarily Bantu speakers that was being taken in those zones. And for us, and that came to America, we are really Mendi, Fulani, Yoruba, Alactic Congo speakers, Volta Congo speakers, those type of people. You're not going to find, you might find, like you say, the East Africans, but what type of East Africans are they taking? They're not taking Somalis. They're not taking Oromos. Somalis was embedded with Islam, and they didn't look, they still treat Somali Bantus bad and call them Jegada. That's the term that they use, Jegada. Look it up, or if you're around Somalis, you'll understand. Even with, like my mother being Fulani, and I'm going to say this, Fulanis are flunkies. They were the ones that caused a lot of jihad in the Sahel. So what I'm saying is that you got to look at the mindset of what was going on with people in Africa at that time. So even if you're talking about East Africans that was taken, that's not talking about Habesha, Oromo, or Somali. You're talking about Bantu speakers that was taken. Bantu speakers. Even the ones that went into Zanzibar who Al-Jahiz was a descent of in Arabia that went over there in Baghdad or whatever. Those were people that was Bantu speakers. Those were Bantu speakers, the Zaj.
So what was your position on the Gedmatch projects?
Okay, now with Gedmatch, you got to be careful with Gedmatch. You got to be careful because what Gedmatch do is.
Yeah, let's go into another question. Like so,
Let's hold on. Let's
I
want to hear real quick what he said about Gedmatch. Why you got to be careful. What did he say? Let's listen to that real quick.
Oh, We'll have to hear the whole thing again the way I got the clip in here. But that's cool. I don't mind that. I'll play it again. And there's a part 2 to it as
well. Orthodox Moore, you had a question that you wanted to ask, and we skipped over you. So go ahead and
the two quick clarification questions. So one, Brother Ngozi, what is your position on the Gedmatch projects that tell the people that say they connected to Lemba that those particular projects also match them up to Yemenite, Ethiopian, and Moroccan Jews? And the second question to Garfield, was it your position earlier that no East Africans were taken into the transatlantic slave trade into the West?
Yeah, my position is that, I mean, there were people taken from North, but not from the East. There's some few people taken from the North, not necessarily from the East Africa. East Africa people were taken in the, during the time when the Muslims were in charge. They did take them to several different places. You know, that's why when people talk about the 400 years, you got to be careful because there's the people from the East that were taken on ships. So if they want to play that game, and they've been in the land for over 400 years as slaves. So these are things that's going on outside of our world that's happening on that side of the continent. All right. But as far as taken to America, I'm not aware of that. Maybe that's something I missed in school, but I don't know about that. Ngozi, the next question.
I was going to say again, even those people that you talk about that were stripped from East Africa that the Arabians took, or some of them that possibly came through the Portuguese and traded somewhere in Iberian Peninsula with the British or whatever, they were primarily Bantu speakers. You're not going to find a Habesha slave over here. You're not going to find a Somali slave over here. You're not going to find a Oromo slave over here. You're not going to find an Melodic slave over here. You find primarily Bantu speakers that was being taken in those zones. For us, and that came to America, we are really Mendi, Fulani, Yoruba, Alactic Congo speakers, Volta Congo speakers, those type of people. You're not going to find, you might find, like you say, the East Africans, but what type of East Africans are they taking? They're not taking Somalis. They're not taking Oromos. Somalis was embedded with Islam, and they still treat Somali Bantus bad and call them Jegara. That's the term that they use, Jegara. Look it up, or if you're around Somalis, you'll understand. Even with, like my mother being Fulani, and I'm going to say this, Fulanis are flunkies. They were the ones that caused a lot of jihad in the Sahel. So what I'm saying is that you got to look at the mindset of what was going on with people in Africa at that time. So even if you're talking about East Africans that was taken, that's not talking about Habesha, Oromo, or Somali. You're talking about Bantu speakers that was taken. Bantu speakers. Even the ones that went into Zanzibar, who Al-Jahiz was a descent of in Arabia that went over there in Baghdad or whatever. Those were people that was Bantu speakers. Those were Bantu speakers, the Zaj.
So what was your position on the Gedmatch projects?
Okay, now with Gedmatch, you got to be careful with Gedmatch. You got to be careful because what Gedmatch do is you take a DNA test through 23andMe Ancestry and take your raw data and upload it. And it shows you the population that you have close affinities to. What part of the DNA that's been abstracted or taken away through the raw data when it reads your overall autosomal DNA composition? What connects you to Yemen and certain parts of Ethiopia is talking about the African part. It's not talking about the Middle Eastern part. The brother talked about earlier when Brother Garfield was reading from the abstract, you find the sub-Saharan African component over there in the Middle East. We talked about that. Where did it come from? A lot of it comes from the slave trade that was when they were importing sub-Saharan African women. And you also have an early L3 branch that went over there. And even with the Ethiopian Jews, the Falasha Jews aren't even really, when they looked at their genetics, they're not even really Semitic. They're not really Eurasian. They're not as much Eurasian as the Habeshan. You get what I'm saying when you look at their genetics? So the Falasha Jews, when you look at that mitochondrial DNA, you find a lot of the mitochondrial DNA in East Africa that you find in West Africa. So the part of the DNA that's similar to Yemenis people is talking about the African component. It's not talking about the Middle Eastern component. Now, and if you use Ethiohelix on Gedmatch, it abstracts the African component. Now, when you go into the European part of Gedmatch, they go back into your Neolithic components through Europe, which links you to the Middle East. So like your British blood, let's say you're 23% British. What makes up a British person? Europeans are phases of 3 group populations that came together to see the Europeans that we see today. Mesolithic Europeans, Neolithic Europeans that came out of Anatolia, and the Yemenis that came from the Russian steppes who brought the Indo-European language. If you go further into your British DNA, you're going to find ties to the Anatolian area or the Caucasus.
So do you understand?
You're also going to find ties with ancient Mesolithic Europeans. So Gedmatch goes further back in time into your DNA.
So do you understand what he's saying with that Orthodox, what he's saying?
Yeah, we just covered all that. I understand the argument.
Right. I think that he basically broke it down and explained that key, that the component that you see that shows that there is some type of connection between Lemba is the African connection. So then he starts to go off into the Europeans, and he starts to show within the Europeans of what will connect them some way down in ancient DNA to them dealing with the Anatolian people and different people of that sort. So I think that that's clear to where it's showing basically, that's why he was like that, it's showing basically your connection between these people as far as the African side of these Lemba and the African side of when you start dealing with African Americans. Now, if you took that and you tried to use Lemba, right? You try to use the world chart with Lemba, right? And if you was a Lemba, if you knew that you was actually Lemba, you say, well, I'm Lemba. I know that my peoples are Lemba, and this is where we come from. So we use this one population approximation. Then you say, well, I'm gonna use the world chart. Well, you are going to run across some connections that we see with people that's from the Bantu expansion, as well as people that's from around the world that has African DNA. Why? Because as a Lemba, you come out of that Bantu expansion, so you would have what we see some African DNA, what we call African DNA. You would share that with them, and I think that that's what you see. But when you start talking about things of a sort, when we start saying, well, what are these markers that we see that come up out of the Levant area? It's not really giving you that details of that like that. It's not showing you that. When you look at these guys and you look at 23andMe and you look at their raw data, and it doesn't show that these people even are related to or have markers that's outside of Africa. You got brothers that's like 89, 88%. And then when you do see the markers that is outside, it's European, you know what I'm saying? Mainly European. And then when you do have some, then you can say, well, okay, but that's what I'm saying with that. That's simple what he just saying. Like, I can understand it the way he put it, where you can understand it. It's so that's the connection that you would have between a Lemba and a Jew, you know what I'm saying? And you got Lemba, then you got the Jews. And so even with that, you will have to look at it and say, well, does all the Lemba, what part of the Lemba did they talking about? Like, what does all Lemba have because they got Lemba there, then they got Lemba Jews or Ethiopian Jews. Did you notice that there? Did you see those things there?
In the Gedmatch?
Yeah, up on the Oracle, they had Lemba
Jews. I saw Ethiopian Jew, Yemenite Jew. I saw them, all that.
You had Jews that was listed 2 times. So what that's telling you that there's out of these different Ethiopian Jews, you might have markers that we see this among the Ethiopian Jews, but all of these share something in common, and that's what you start looking at, which is they have African DNA. Basically, what we would say what Africa is today, they all share those mutations, even with the Hamites. So you can't you can't look at that like you can't say that because of African who's a Ham. Like you can say, well, a Hamite has some type of relationship with that of a Jew. You know what I'm saying? But what is that relationship? Because I guarantee you that if you just knew that this person is specifically just from Ham, he's nothing but a Hamite. But he shares something with this Jew. You know what I'm saying? So what will he share with that Jew? African DNA. You know what I'm saying? They both come from a certain spot of what we call the Bantu expansion. So they're going to share something similar with each other. You know what I'm saying? Especially when you go farther back. So I think that's what that's listing. So I think that they reading that stuff wrong and they not reading that correct. And like they always do. When you find out, when you start to do research on stuff and you get people to come in, these people, they do that. They known for doing that. They known for taking stuff. And then when you get and start reading what they took and say, well, hold on for a minute, let me read this and see if this saying what they saying. It's not saying what they saying. And it always be that. You know what I'm saying? I have yet to see to where Black Hebrew Israelites have showed something and it actually said what it said. It's always somebody chopping, screwing. And then when you start like Brother Berean, he had this dude on there called Dana Stevens. And go just talk like when you talk to these people, they just unstable and they're mentally destroyed. Even when you start talking about these white people that say, they start talking about well, these guys, if they're not Jew and they're Europeans, they start saying, well, the blacks are Israelites. That's what they start saying. Just watch how mentally like they're not. Just look at them. Just look at them outwardly. Look at how they act. They all have something psychologically wrong with them, and it's something not right with them. Like when you start talking about, he said he got beat up, right? He said he got beat up by some blacks because he was saying some type of racist stuff, so he gets beat up. So then he begins to sympathize or whatever. So he begins to, basically say that the blacks are this or the blacks this and that. And then when he does a video with Brother Berean, he has a picture of Trayvon Martin on the wall. You know what I'm saying? So these are the games that they play. They all have these psychological problems. Even when you start talking about the Black Hebrew Israelites, they all the same. There's something wrong with these people. You know what I'm saying? And really, they just don't want to be whatever they say they is. If you say if you African or whatever, it doesn't really matter. So everybody wants to be chosen. You know what I'm saying? Everybody wants to be this and that. But what to be chosen means you got responsibility. You know what I'm saying? And really when you in Christ, you chosen. You know what I'm saying? Uh, so you got an assignment that you have to do. But somebody, they takes that and mess with that. So that's what I'm looking at. A lot of these people got some. It's a lot of psychological post-traumatic slave syndrome going on. And then when you start dealing with white people, they ain't doing nothing but just edging it on more. Then we start dealing with Jews. They going around doing is trying to get converts so they could take over the world, in which they said they already going. And blacks, the place that blacks have with them is to be their servants and their slaves. They already done said that. So of course they're gonna be going around telling people that they Jews are this and that. Harry Rosenberg, whatever his name is, that's the type of stuff that they do. But when they took that test, them people from over there, they try to make E1B1A. That's an Israelite marker. Come on, man. That's pure silliness. You know what I'm saying? That marker existed before there was an Israelite. What about the markers that exist outside of Africa? Why you ain't got them markers? You know what I'm saying? So this is the games they play with us between these three worlds, whether Jew, Christian, Judeo-Christians, or Islam. That's what mainly black people are. When we came over here, that's what we was either converted to. You either gonna be dealing with Islam, and then you went from that being a Christian. Then later on, when black people start realizing that Christianity had all of this racism, all this stuff in it, the Christian was portraying to be Christians was racist. Then they moved over back to Islam. But they was practicing a lot of that stuff prior to then. Why? Because these worlds that came into Africa that was more advanced than the people than them, these new gods, basically. They brought these new gods and summed them up or whatever to one or two or three deities and brought them in. So that's what's really going on. And that's politicking. And that's what's going to be going on in the end times in the last days. Three worlds going to be fighting. Islam going to be in that. Islam fighting in that. Christians fighting in that. You know what I'm saying?
Then you start dealing with Jews. These are three worlds that's basically fighting. And I wouldn't say that because a Christian ain't even supposed to be doing that. A Jew really not supposed to be doing that. But why is they doing that? I'm saying I can't speak on Islam, but I do know that Islam go to war and get busy just as well too. I can't really speak on to say what they supposed to be doing because some Islam say they gonna take over the Mediterranean and the whole world basically. So that's what I see there, and I'm standing on that.
That's what's up. So,
On the speaking method, go ahead, I'm sorry.
No, go ahead. What's your thought? Go ahead.
As you missed the key part, he said about only the Bantu speaking tribes were taken into slavery.
Yeah, that goes into my to the second question that I asked because I don't know if you saw it or not. But let me put this up right quick.
And he says, I wonder who the Bantu speaking tribes were. Maybe the Hebrews.
Right.
So all of this different stuff that So we start getting back to that again.
Yeah, so that goes into the second question that I asked Ngozi and Garfield that I wanted to ask you. So I don't know if you saw it or not, but I was fortunate enough to sit down with the Lemba brother Kohen Hamendishe and for 3 hours on this channel and have a good conversation and whatnot. And he was saying that he believed that there were Lemba taken on slave ships to the west. And so I basically asked Garfield and Ngozi if they thought that there were any people taken from East Africa in the transatlantic slave trade. Garfield said no, and Ngozi was saying only Bantu-speaking people. So the Bantu-speaking people would be the Lemba would be the people that Lemba were around. So in the conversation with Kohen Hamadisha, he said that they went from Babylon to Israel to Yemen to Mozambique to Zimbabwe. So is it your position that went from Babylon to Israel to Yemen to Mozambique to Zimbabwe?
So this is the first dispersion or he sent the second one?
So the first time that they left, they went from Israel to Yemen, and the second migration was from Yemen to Mozambique. Then they made a third migration from Mozambique to Zimbabwe.
Oh shit! See, that's what I'm saying. Like I don't like you say when I know that he would have to verify that biblically. I think that one of the ways they do try to verify that biblically, they use Zephaniah. Zephaniah says that they will go to beyond the rivers of Ethiopia. And so when they use Zephaniah, I think it's Zephaniah 3:3 if I'm not mistaken. And so what they'll use is they'll say beyond the rivers of Ethiopia. So that can mean two things, and it's kind of hard. But then we kind of can give a place to it, and we kind of can know where it's at. Really start dealing with Zimbabwe and all those areas south, because we do see them south in those areas to where that's beyond the rivers of Ethiopia. Now they might say, well, that's west. I don't think it's west because it begins to talk about certain things like the testy fly within Isaiah, showing that they would send ships down there. And in Isaiah, I think it's Isaiah, I want to say, if I'm not mistaken, 17 or 19, where it talks about where they going beyond the rivers of Ethiopia. And then also it talks about that in it's not Ezekiel, it's Zephaniah 3:3. So they'll say, well, that's west. And I don't think that's west. I think that's more so south. And we can attest for that because we see it biblically that they went those ways during the first, even the diaspora. They were scattered to the south of Ethiopia. They were scattered. Not Nebuchadnezzar, but the pharaohs was coming up, taking them back down into Egypt, and setting up their own little kings in the Levant area. Then Nebuchadnezzar took them. So Josephus said they went beyond the rivers of Euphrates, which they was deep and innumerable beyond the rivers of Euphrates. So we know that they was in the east just as well. We know that it was a gang that was in North Africa, so they would have been spreading over within that first dispersion too, because they would spread around. They spread during the time of what is it? Um, what's the Joel? It says that they spread them. Basically, the Grecians took them. The Zidonians sold them to the Grecians. So the Grecians was also selling during that time. So they definitely was in the Mediterranean. So, but when you start looking at these Jews that was in the West, we got to start looking at their literature. I'm saying, like, what literature did they actually have? Did they have literature? And then when you start looking like a lot of these groups that you don't really see that type of literature like that.
In the West, when you say the Jews in the West, where do you mean specifically?
When you start talking about West Africa,
Okay.
like where's the literature at? Like that's what I'm saying. Like they should have plenty of literature and stuff like that. But when you start looking at the Ethiopian Jews, they got literature. When you start looking at the Moroccan Jews and all these other Jews, they got plenty of literature.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's looking like that these in a lot of times these Jews came, they was there. We know that there was a conversion process that took place. They've been converting people since a long time. They did it in Africa, they did it in Asia, and they did it in Europe. And so a lot of those people that came across the water, this is not just no Israelite thing. This is also an African thing. What I mean by that is you just ain't saying, I'm just going to pick up the Israelites. Yeah, you would get an Israelite. Why? Because they was smarter, but at the same time, you still need muscle. So you definitely going to get what's available to you and through these West Africans. And that's what they did. They preyed on people within West Africa, as well as the people who was in West Africa who was intelligent enough to trade with the people that was in the Mediterranean areas. That's what they did. So I don't see how we can say that this was just an Israelite thing or the in the Bantu expansion. Oh, they just took the Israelites. You know what I'm saying? Nah, that don't look like that. It look more so like what happened with Nebuchadnezzar. Nebuchadnezzar just didn't come and get the Israelites. He came and got everybody and took all the nations into captivity and brought them and spread them out to different places where as so fit that he needed them. And that's exactly what happened with the Atlantic slave trade. It's the same thing. These people come in, they take people from certain spots, whether it's to the east, because we see that they have the slave list, and it's just not coming to the Americas. It's going other places just as well too. Not just to the Americas. Wherever they needed slaves at, that's where they was going. The Sephardic Jews even went all the way to over there to where India. Now, what was they doing all the way over there? You had to ask yourself, what are the Sephardic Jews doing over there? Same reason why they was over, why they came to the Americas.
Yep. So real quick, I wanted to clarify what the Kohen was saying about their migration and whatnot, because with the biblical scrolls that they use, they talk about using Ezra 10 as for the beginning of their migration, from when the Israelites came out of captivity from Babylon and whatnot, where they talked about putting away the wives and the children of the wives who were of the foreign women and whatnot, right? And so they talked about that they migrated from there to Yemen, and then let me just go through it like this.
10.
Yeah.
Where is it at? Ezra 10.
So hold on. So in Ezra 10:3. Now, therefore, let us make a covenant with our God to put away all the wives and such are as born of them, according to the counsel of my Lord and of those that tremble at the commandments of our God, and let it be done according to the law, etc. When you go through Ezra 10 period, like it breaks it down. So it
doesn't say anything about them going to West Africa.
No, I'm not saying that. Like, so that's what I was just trying to clarify real quick. I wanted to make sure I clarified the Cohen's position on what he was saying, so it wasn't misrepresented or whatnot. So he's saying that first migration from Ezra 10, they go from there to Yemen. Let me go through this real quick. And that they go to the Hajjamat region Matter of fact, let me go back one. And they build the city. They deal with the city called Senna, right? And yeah, Senna was a Jewish city or whatnot. You know what I'm saying? And it exists in the right time or whatnot. But they say that they come over here and build a city called Senna over here in the Hajamat region. And then from there, they go to from there they sail around the Horn and they go down to Mozambique or whatnot. And then from Mozambique they go into Somalia or whatnot. But he was also saying that he believed that there were or not Somalia, excuse me, Zimbabwe. And then he said he also believed that there were Lemba taken from where they were in Mozambique, etc., into the slave trade in West Africa. So when I asked that to Garfield, and to Ngozi, they were basically said, like Ngozi said that there were Bantu speakers taken, which could overlap to what the brother was saying. Garfield said it didn't happen, period, or whatnot. I wanted to know what was your position on that.
Well, I mean, it's possible. You know what I'm saying? Like I said, I wouldn't say that it's not possible because there was a lot of moving around. So I would say that, you know what I'm saying? Like I say, when you, like, if you look at Zimbabwe, right? If you look down here with these Jews that is down here, that's south of the Kush, That's south of Ethiopia. So he said he will take them all the way beyond the river of Euphrates. It's south of Ethiopia right there, all the way down. And so, but I would say that it's possible, you know what I'm saying, because as we see that, like as I was saying before, is you know, they would be spread, you know what I'm saying, as far as, you know, the east, always from east, west, south, east, west. You know, I wouldn't say that like they've done genetic testing on people from Mexico, New Mexico.
Mm-hmm.
A black guy in New Mexico, and he
Shout
has
out to my New Mexico people.
Yeah, he has a lot of Jewish in him too. Like, well.
Yeah, that's where my mother's from. They found a big crypto Jewish population in northern New Mexico, southern Colorado, and whatnot. That a lot of people don't know about New Mexico in the sense to where like it was like my mother's family didn't come through Ellis Island. They were here when it was New Spain. You know what I'm saying? So they were like a close knit population for like 400 or 500 years or whatnot. You know what I'm saying?
Then he says we have record of the Jews moved from Southeast Africa to the west to escape the Arab conquest, the slave trade. And see, that's what I'm saying. Like, that's what I'm talking about. Like, I can believe that. I'm not knocking that. But what I'm telling him is, you still have these three worlds. And even when you have those Jews that was moving a certain type of way, that doesn't neglect the fact that you have Jews that are in authority that also have slaves. You know what I'm saying? Because if you start looking at these Jews, I'm telling you, they you know, everywhere they go, it's been problems with them. Like, they'll make you think these are just blacks. Nah, these ain't just blacks. These people look like people that's of the land, but still they have their little cities, they groups. Some of these people never experienced the 70 AD. Now, when you say, well, they left up out of Babylon and they went to Zimbabwe, or they went to Yemen. The Jews could have been there prior to that, before before then. You know what I'm saying? They could have been there prior to that, before then. We don't know, because all the thing we know is that during that first dispersion, we have to look at how these empires were spread. You know, who at that time was coming up and down that Red Sea. It's tied in right there where Yemen at, and right there where the continent of Africa is at. Mm-hmm. Who was coming across that place right there? We also got to look at 630 during that time, through 630 AD during that time. Why do we need to look there? We need to look there because we know Muhammad was among Jews, and he was among Jews that was in Mecca, and also that was in Africa. So he would have been coming across the Red Sea, dealing with those areas that was in Mecca. So he came across many of Jews. So they was already in those areas,
And so they could have been in those areas, like I say, after the first dispersion, and then when they came back into the land, they could have been in those areas. So none of that really matters. Only thing we know is that they in those areas, and we know that the conquest between the Jews, the conquest between the Christians, and also Islam is in Africa, and that's what's going on. Now, I'm not saying that's all Israelites, but that is them. That's a part of what they was doing, and they've been doing that.
So I don't know if you saw it or not, but I just recently did a presentation about about the East African slave trade in terms of East African slaves that did make it to the West, in terms of the French and the Portuguese taking slaves from Mozambique, selling them around the Cape, and then taking them like the French took them to Saint Domingue in Haiti, and then the Portuguese took them to Brazil, and then even the Spanish took them to Spanish South America, etc. Whatnot. So I can definitely give you the sources on that if you want to. But even the presentation, it's on this channel here. You can watch it here.
You said what again?
They found, so there was they found a large East African slave trade that came to the West via the French and the Portuguese and whatnot, where they took slaves from the coast of from Mozambique, and even from the interior of Mozambique, and brought them to Haiti, and then brought them to Brazil, and then brought them to Spanish South America. Yeah, and this was, go ahead.
What's the date?
We're talking from the 1770s to the I want to say 60s. Hold on, let me check this out right quick. Let me pull up my other presentation. But hold on. But being that is the case, I wanted to know what you thought about, like, so if people were taken from Mozambique to Haiti and etc. whatnot, in the Caribbean and whatnot, in South America whatnot, is it potentially plausible in your mind that Lemba could have been on those ships and people could literally in small pockets have direct genetic contact with those people?
I mean, it could be possible. You know what I'm saying? Like I say, if that happened, then that could be possible. You know what I'm saying? But if that did happen, I think that'd be a problem with that though, because if you start like that, yeah, that could have happened. But that, like I say, the thing about it is like the best thing for them to do is if you saying that you this or you that, then you need to get into more of a detailed when it comes to if you want to say, well, we want to deal with genetics, you need to get more detailed with it. You should have ties. You should be closely related to, the corner store Arab. Why? Because them your peoples. If you say you want to go biblically and the Bible is your authority, then you need to be close to them, tied to them. Then why? Because they come from Shem. So why wouldn't you be close to them? You should be able to take a DNA test, prick them and prick you, and y'all should have some things that's similar. Y'all should be similar related to each other. Because them your cousins, you know what I'm saying? So you can't say them ain't your cousins. Just like if a Jew went and did a test with an Arab today, it shows that they cousins, you know what I'm saying? So you can't get away from that. So what did you say to that? You're going to say, well, these are not the people. These people been in these areas for a long time. Because when you start looking at them Kurds and stuff like that, they look the same as they've been looking since on them walls when you go look at them. Curly, long beards and all that type of stuff, crinkled hair, all of that type of stuff. They look the same. So my suggestion to them is that you need to that's what you should do. But saying that basically these people was all Africans, all Israelites that came over. So I heard some people say 80 to 90% was African. Was Israelites. That's crazy. Knowing that ain't how that works, you know what I'm saying? That don't go like that. You know what I'm saying? 90% of them was Israelites that came into Africa. Some people say 30 to 40%. I'm saying that's what they say.
Yeah. So real quick. So this is I just put the article in the chat. This is a Smithsonian article talking about the history of the San Jose slave ship and the site thereof. The picture is from the dive site around off the coast of the Cape Town in South Africa, right? And the San Jose was it says here was one of the earliest voyages of the slave trade between Mozambique and Brazil. Again, this is a Portuguese slave ship. It sailed from Lisbon. And then made its way to around the Cape to Mozambique, and then was coming back around to making its way to Brazil or whatnot. But again, Brazil had a massive slave trade in human beings, which continued well into the 19th century. More than 400,000 East Africans are estimated to have made the journey between 1800 and 1865, and that's just from Portugal. That's just the Portuguese slave trade from Mozambique to Brazil. That's not including the French slave trade going to Haiti or whatnot. The French started doing their thing in the 1770s.
All right, so it says they went to Brazil. East Africans are more than 400,000 East Africans are estimated to have made the journey between 1800 and 1865, transported in inhumane conditions and voyages that often took 2 to 3 months. Many did not survive the trip. For many years, Cape Town prospered as a way. Yeah, that still ain't gonna work. You know what I'm saying? It's only like 400,000. You know how many slaves came on them ships over there? Like 12 million.
Okay, so you now just obligated me to do this. Hold on right quick. Let me go to the beginning of this joint right quick. Okay, so this is talking about this. Hold on, I'm gonna send you another article to go on right quick, because this is one talking about the French aspect of it right quick. So hold on, let me put this in the chat for the people so they can be up to date as to what we're talking about. I'm gonna read some stuff off right quick. So it says this. East Africa was a late participant in the transatlantic slave trade. In the 1770s, the French began to regularly trade in slaves in the French islands of Mauritius and Reunion. For those who don't know, these are islands east of Madagascar in the Indian Ocean. But they were trading from these slaves from points on the East African coast. Slaves were taken in small number for a century prior to that. But when planters in Saint-Domingue, a French colony in what is now Haiti, demanded more labor, this slave trade became more regular and systematic. It took slaves from Mozambique ports 120 days to reach Saint-Domingue, while 30% of the slaves died on the long Middle Passage. It still soon became a profitable route. Soon a triangular slave trade developed between the western port cities of France in Bordeaux and Nantes, in Saint-Domingue in East Africa. The slaves were exchanged for sugar, coffee, and indigo. And then they say this. During the 1780s, the vessels used to transport these slaves grew to be able to carry up to 1,000 slaves. Between 1789 and 1790, the triangular transatlantic East African slave trade reached its peak when 46. This has to do with the French. This is specifically just the French. When 46 ships carrying more than 16,000 slaves circumnavigated the Cape. That was their traffic just in that 1 year, right? So there was a lot of trading going on. It wasn't just a small thing, but it was late in the slave trade. But yeah, I did a whole presentation on that. You can go catch up on, and for the family, y'all can go see that on this channel as well. But go ahead, my fault. Go ahead.
A lot of those people are still probably in the same place where they dropped them off at to this day.
Okay, hold on. I gotta share my screen one more time. Hold on. My fault, bro, man. Because you say stuff and it's touching on stuff that I talked about. Real quick. Well, let me just do it like this. Let me just speed through this because during the time period, how it works out is East African slaves taken from Mozambique coast and the interior of Africa would have been present during the slave insurrection of the Haitian Revolution, which took place from 1791 to 1804 in the French colony of Saint-Domingue. Planters from Saint Domingue sought refuge from the revolution and migrated to the territory of Orleans. Okay, this is modern day Louisiana, etc. Whatnot, right?
Mm-hmm.
They're African slave, but when they migrated, they took their African slaves with them, which subsequently led to the largest slave rebellion in U.S. history in 1811 or whatnot, right? So not only were there East African Bantu speakers taken to Haiti, but there were also East African Bantu speakers that were taken from Haiti to the continental America in Louisiana, etc.
We see that in Louisiana, and that's one of the things that we brought up in what's called presentation. What's the name? Presentation from West Africa, because New Orleans, they practice a lot of God within New Orleans, but it's modern. And so a lot of those practices that we see they brought with them. And so that's why we have New Orleans being a spot to where they call it Louisiana, the spot to where they call it the place where the witches are, or something like that. So,
nah, big facts. If you're from the South, you already know what that is. You know what I'm saying? Like,
so a lot of them people they would have that's what they practice. And so you kind of look at what they practicing, where they actually would have came from. You know what I'm saying? So do you have some East African customs? Is there in Louisiana? You know what I'm saying? What are the East African traditions that you see? Is there some there? Because East Africans, they didn't do the same things that West Africans was doing. So that's what they was looking at. And that's what the brother Rob Bourne talked about, is that when they was dropped off in these certain places, they still was practicing their traditions that they practiced when they was in West Africa or whatever they came from. That's how we know who they are, where they came from, because they still practice the same traditions, and they just modernize it. So when you start looking at New Orleans, that's what you see there. They practice a lot of that voodoo or voodoo, which is some type of modern. It's modern, not modernized now, but a lot of that stuff comes from the very places that they was brought from. Some mainly West Africa. So I don't know. What I do know that if you saying that they would have brought those traditions with them, you know what I'm saying, if they was taken from those places, and that's how you know where this person comes from, this place or that place.
no, it makes a lot of sense. Makes a lot of sense.
It's like
So
you say you go. I'm sorry.
No, go ahead.
It's like when you look at the tradition of those who are the Ethiopian Jews, they brought what they had with them. You know what I'm saying.
Mm-hmm.
But we know we can't say that they converts. Why? Because when we genetically do a DNA test on them, we see that they actually trace back to places or have markers that goes back to the Levant area. So we can't say that that. You know what I'm saying? Plus they have biblically we can show them going there. And then you can see their traditions, and then you can see linguistically. You know what I'm saying? As well as when you start talking about the Sephardim Jews or Sephardic Jews, it's the same thing. They speak Ladino, you know what I'm saying? Spanish and Hebrew. Then we start talking about the Ashkenazis. The Ashkenazis, they speak a Germanic language with Hebrew. I mean, Yiddish and Hebrew, that's what it's called. It's Yiddish and Hebrew. So then when you deal with also the people that's in the Koshin Jews, they speak the native tongue that's of that land in Hebrew. So all these guys is going off to these different places. They got oral tradition, they got extra biblical sources, they got linguistically. You know what I'm saying, then when you start dealing with then you could, like I say, you're gonna find some converts. You're gonna find some people that move to the West. I wouldn't say that there's not a significant amount of Israelites that is in America, but the problem is that when you don't know, because it's so much admixture, and it's so much also people that was taken into slave during this Atlantic slave trade that wasn't Israelites. It wasn't just Israelites. It was also people that we see of tribes that have no Israelite descent. A lot of people was in the West. It was taken.
Yeah, you're saying the claims aren't being made definitive enough. They're still too broad.
Yeah, it's still too broad. So then when you get to going around saying God told me that I was an Israelite, I don't think that's something that God trying to do. I think basically He's trying to get you to, you know what I'm saying, to basically to understand Him first. You know what I'm saying, to be in Him first, to know who He is,
and know what happened to the Israelites and why they was in the position that they was in. Wasn't it because they forgot who they was? Because they forgot their power. You know what I'm saying? That's what happened. They forgot their power. They forgot, the things that he instructed them to do to where he led them into captivity. So I can't, like I say, when you're dealing with DNA and dealing with all that stuff, it's that's not a way of saying that you're an Israelite, but you can somewhat say this is where I came from. So there's a possibility that I might be that. You know what I'm saying? But it's a possibility that you're not that. You know what I'm saying? Because there is no Israelite marker. It's just we see the people of these same groups genetically share something with each other. Is saying that they are Israelites. Whether they, if they come from West Africa, they come from North Africa, East Africa. You got to line up with these other groups because all these groups are lining up with each other and they share something that could get connected with each other. That's not no coincidence.
Now, you're saying basically either or, it don't matter if you're an Israelite or non-Israelite. Your job is to get right with the Most High either way, right?
What you better do, you better get right with the Most High. So you sitting around trying to prove that you're an Israelite or trying to say that you got this hierarchy, you want people to wash your feet and all this and that. You need to be watching. You have to watch feet. That's your job to watch feet too.
I can agree with that too, because something I always say is if you got the nerve to raise your hand and say that you're an Israelite, that means that you're volunteering for the hardest job in the game, which is to be a light unto your people and to the Gentiles. You know what I'm saying? So it's not about telling people who you come from. It's about being the living embodiment of the ways of the Most High, so people are led to the Most High by watching how you live. That's my 2 cents on it.
Between African Americans and Lemba. He said, "What's the CM?"
Hey, Hookana, real quick, what do you mean by CM, brother man? Go ahead and type that in the chat. Give me 2 seconds. I'll be right back. Yeah, sorry about that, family. Yeah, so you Hookana, if you're still there, please let me know what you mean by CM. Do you know what it means? Do you know what it means? Okay. So you want to take that question then?
Yeah, that's what I'm asking. What is the CM? I don't know.
Okay. No, we don't know. That's what we're asking you. Can you explain it real quick, Hookana? Let me see. Let's see. What's it saying? Centimorgan chart. Okay.
What do you say?
It's a centimorgan. Hey, peace, Sister Barbara Ford. How you doing? Did I get that right, Hookana? It's a centimorgan. I love you, Hookana, but you can be a bit more edifying and maybe answer my question, because I don't know what a centimorgan is.
All right.
Yeah, so.
Oh, he says basically unit measuring genetic linkage.
Okay.
What it is? Ask him what is it. What it?
He said it is a centimorgan.
That's what I'm asking him. What is the
What is a CM?
what is the centimorgan between African Americans and Lemba? What is it? What is I'm guessing? What's the numbers?
Yeah, so that is a question for you, Yuhukanon. If you could throw that in the chat,
the distance between chromosome positions for which the expected average number of intervening chromosomal crossovers in a single generation is 0.01. So let's look at it. Between Lemba and African Americans.
yeah, Barbara Ford to the rescue. Appreciate you, Queen.
Let's see. It says the Lemba are Southern African Bantu-speaking populations claiming Jewish ancestry. And they talk about the Did he put it in the chat room?
No, not yet. It was a good question. I would love to know the answer to it. So Yuhukanon, if you got the answer, man, please do not hesitate to supply it because neither one of us know what it is. But it is a very good question. But with that, while we're waiting for an answer, so what's up with you and any debates, man? You got any debates you trying to get in or no?
No, I don't really got any debates for real. It's not up the top for real.
Are you losing your place for debating, or you just don't have anything to debate right now?
Yeah, it really don't like. I don't know. I really ain't no debater like that for real, so I don't really got nothing too much. I ain't to problem trying to get stuff together and put stuff together. I get I be having so much to do. I'm always over the road and stuff, so I'll be busy. So mainly I'll be liking to have, if anything, discussions, if anything. Plus, when I don't like the time limits and stuff like that. I can't really get all my information that I want to get out. So
right, I got you.
And it don't serve me no purpose with doing it. Rather, somebody might be a debater. They can present the information and get the information out how they want to get it out. When I get rushed and stuff like that, I don't be liking that.
So, is there any topics you want to discuss? Like have like a sit down round table on?
Yeah, basically a lot of my eschatology. I'm saying I'd like to have discussions about eschatology because, like, if a person is saying if they're an Israelite, I'm saying they should fit eschatology. I'm saying they should fit the politics that's going on in the world. I'm saying where do you fit with that? I'm saying, and so I think that that's what we start looking at these Jews where they fit that description. Politics.
Interesting. Okay. Yeah, I think that'd be a good conversation, man.
Yeah, so that's my position, like, in that area.
Are you still a young Earth creationist or no?
Yeah, I'm positioned with a young Earth.
Are you familiar with the Standing for Truth team? Oh, okay, yeah, we got to build on the side on that. Right, cool.
Are you young Earth or are you what?
No, I'm not a young Earth. However, I was going to try to bring on some young Earthers that are killing the debate world against the atheists right now and against the evolutionists and whatnot. And but I wanted to have somebody who was young Earth on that might be able to ask better questions than what I could ask or might understand the information better than I do because I'm not young Earth, but. I'm noticing these cats. I got a lot of respect for them because they put out a lot of scientific stuff. They actually put out stuff to be falsified, and I have a lot of respect for that. And they work with doctors. They work with a whole bunch of other people and whatnot. They got a bunch of books out. So I was gonna have him come on, try to have him come on and do like a book review on some of their stuff, and have him just talk about the concept of young Earth creationism, because not many people are familiar with it. But I wanted to have them come on because to me they're at the top of the field in terms of debating the topic or whatnot. I mean, they're like, man, they got me going to study all kind of stuff just to understand what they're saying. They talk about genetics, they talk about geology, all that type of stuff. You know what I'm saying?
Right. And so the thing with genetics is this is like we have to make some assumptions. And so when I talked about the biological clock, is based upon the rate of accumulation upon a chromosome or change that we see within one organism A from organism B. So when we look at the rate of change today, we have to assume that rate of change was consistent in the past. And so that's the only thing about that. Like, we can look at genetic genes today and we can see how certain things, certain mutations and certain things, how they develop, and we can measure that. And so we can look at
that's what I'm saying, bro. They got a lot of stuff to where they're measuring like 6,000 year mutations or whatnot, to where it's like,
right. And so, but
they lay a very compelling argument.
I understand that, but that's only based upon the rate of change that we see today. In other words, we don't know. Like, for instance, when you talk about something like how let's say how when something get outside of like, let's say for instance when you say force, let's say for instance if you have something that's like you shoot a gun, right? When you shoot a gun, eventually that bullet slows down, but when it first starts, it goes fast, right? It slows, it should go, but as it expands, it start going slow. It doesn't continue in that same type of constant speed. So what people do is we have to make these assumptions, and one of the assumptions is we have to look at the world that we see today, and do what they call it uniformity, to where you look at the what we see today has always been in the past. So the things that we see today existed in the past in a sense, but that's not the case, because even when you start talking about on a subatomic level, you know what I'm saying? We start talking about subatomic particles. Those things, when they fission, when they get outside of its force, they slow down. And so we're measuring at the slowdown rate that we see today. Like when you say the universe, when they say it was from an atom and then it exploded, you know. So the thing that the mistake that they realized that Einstein made was is the speed of light could not be constant, because the speed of light would have had to been faster in the past than what it is now. And so what they measure of the speed of light today, they will measure that, but that doesn't necessarily mean the speed of light was that in the past. And so when you measure that today, you would have to assume that it was that in the past. So that's even dealing with the rate of decay. When you start talking about the breaking down of material and half-lives and stuff like that, that's only dependent upon of the rate of decay that we see today. But the rate of decay that we see in the past, they say, well, the rate of decay does not change. It stays the same. That's a lie. We have seen it change, and it's been changing. And also what changes the rate of decay is when you start dealing with solar flares, when you start dealing with nuclear bombs, or when people making them bombs and stuff like that, and making these products, it does that changes those plants. It knocks off how we can date things. So things will decay faster than what we think it is, and there's evidence that it has. And so they make some great arguments, but when you really look at it, the assumptions is there, even within the biological clocks. You would say, well, what do you calibrate a biological clock to? You have to calibrate it to the fossils, the fossil data, and also the strata. But really, when you look at that poses problems too, because when you begin to look at the fossils, they don't give a date. So then how do they date those things? They had to deal with something what you call a what is that chart called? It's called a chart. And even with that chart, that's something that's based upon assumptions. So all these things is based upon assumptions. And what they find out is they starting to realize that the Earth might be earlier than what they thought it was when you start finding DNA that still cleave to the bones of dinosaurs. They should have been long decayed according to the half-lives that they gave. They start making up lies about that and arguing about that. Well, if this dinosaur is this old, then how do you have this man's bone? I mean, I'm sorry, how do you have this DNA tissue that's still cleaved to that thing that's stuck in? They argued about that and started lying and making up stuff about that. Well, it was preserved in this area, so we know the DNA could be preserved, and all these different excuses that they had. So that's why I said I don't take that position, because when you start looking at when you start going, like when you go to when you stay in Washington, right?
Yes, sir.
Do you know what is those things called? They call staglights or whatever they call. What do they call them things that hang?
The stalactites and stalagmites, yeah.
Yeah, that poses a problem with that. So you go in the cave, they tell you, well, this thing had to form based upon this time, because they basing how much the drip come down and how much at a rate, how much it's going to drip, and how long did it take for certain water to come down to the mountain to this certain part to where it forms this formation or this deposit from the ceiling. Well, the problem with that is that if in the past water flowed faster, then guess what happened? It'll build faster. So you have to make these type of assumptions, and they'll say, well, had to take this this many years to form this, because we measured the rate of this, and this how long it would take. Well, if that was moving a little bit faster in the past, which we know that the whole Earth at one time was covered in water, they'll try to tell you it elevated up. And some of the sea fossils, marine fossils that's in these high areas, 7,000 elevation above sea level, they'll try to tell you that this basically the floor that the mountains pushed up. Well, that's somewhat correct, but at the same time, what about the formations that you see that looked like that it was underwater and waves was moving it around, and sea fossils are what you call marine fossils is in those areas, but the sea is way over 500, 600 miles away. How do you have that type of elevation like that, some 6,000, 7,000 above sea level, with marine fossils there, with the ocean being so far, unless at one part of time that area was covered with water? And that's what we actually see when you start thinking about these formations. So I have to look at examine the information. When I go west and I'm a truck driver, I don't see what they saying. Boulders, big boulders. How do you get big boulders 200, 500 miles away from the sea, and then standing on top of each other that big? The only way I could think of something that happened like that is a worldwide catastrophic flood that took place. And the dude from Smithsonian, I mean, what's that dude's name? He just said it, and they was shooken by that. He just told them a worldwide flood happened. I forgot John Graham or something, or whatever something his name is.
Oh, John Hancock? Or
Yeah.
Graham Hancock, excuse me.
Just told them, he's not a Bible believer. He told them a flood had to do this. It took place.
Yeah, I don't know if you saw, but he came up here, right, in Washington State, and did a small documentary in terms of evidence of a huge flash type flood that happened that carved out all kind of like big canyons and whatnot over here. You know what I'm saying? Like, yeah, it's an interesting conversation. I've seen a lot of presentations by some young Earth creations that are very, very compelling on that concept. That's why I wanted to ask you if you're familiar with the Standing for Truth team, because they kill it on that. You know what I'm saying? Like, yeah, we gotta build on the side on that for real, because they talk about a lot of stuff that I think you would dig. Like, so for instance, are you familiar with Dr. Jensen and the genetic entropy concept that he put out?
Dr. Jensen, I heard of him before.
Yeah, they're putting out falsifiable, you know what I'm saying, claims or whatnot. And they're actually getting information that's matching up to what their hypotheses are. You know what I'm saying? So It's real interesting. They're going like head on with the evolutionists and the abiogenesis and all that type of stuff right now. It's mad interesting.
That's his position. He young Earth or what is it?
No, yeah, he's young Earth, and
Yeah,
so he has this whole concept of genetic entropy where he's breaking down, kind of like what you're talking about in terms of like how things slow down, right?
Gentry?
Huh?
You said Jensen or Gentry?
Jensen, yeah.
Okay.
But yeah, he has a concept of genetic entropy and whatnot. It's where like it's what you're talking about, where things slow down over time. You know what I'm saying? So they have this concept of like genetic front loading, talking about like Adam and Eve would have had like the fifth element perfect DNA. You know what I'm saying? And then it would have decreased from there. You know what I'm saying? And so they've put out the theory, and they're actually getting proofs for it in certain situations to where they're saying that you should be able to look at the genetic entropy of our DNA and be able to go back 6,000 years with it and show that it's only like the 6,000 or whatever year mark with it. You know what I'm saying? And they're actually coming out with a lot of compelling stuff and a lot of compelling arguments. And it's like, so my last debate was over on a modern day debates or whatnot. This is where I met these cats at. You know what I'm saying? They go over there and debate the evolutionists and the atheist all day. Like they put in work. And when I heard them talking, I was like, man, I feel like G-Con would like this stuff. You know what I'm saying? Like, so if you're big on the young Earth stuff, you should definitely like familiarize yourself with it.
Yeah, I used to know all the arguments, but I didn't got what you call it. But do you know that the Lemba tribe, they do share E1B1A too as well? Did you know that?
No, nope, I haven't gotten into all the genetics yet.
Yeah, so that's another thing that we look at. But yeah, man, I ain't gonna hold you. I know it's 148 where I'm at.
Yeah, we going up on almost 3 hours.
I can talk with we're gonna get what's called on her tomorrow. We can get Kevin G, and I can get Ngozi in here. You wanna get him on here? I could definitely get him on.
Yeah, that's what's up. Are you cool if Salam comes on as well or no?
Yeah, that's cool. Yeah, I ain't got no problem with it. Yeah.
Okay, that's what's up. Well, all right, family, we about to shut this down then. Look out for part 2 tomorrow. You know what I'm saying, with Kevin G and Ngozi, etc. And Salam if she's able to show up. And with that, I'm gonna say peace and love. Hey, G-Con, let people know where they can find you.
You could check my channel, G Consciousness. As you can see, it's spelled with a K. Consciousness is spelled with a K. Or you can just Google me. You know what I'm saying? You Google me, G Consciousness spelled with a K, and then I'll pop right up. I'll go to YouTube either way. And appreciate you, man, for letting me come on, man. And hopefully we get some things cleared up tomorrow.
No worries. And so with that, I'm going to say, please don't forget to donate to Sal Showtime for giving us this platform to have neutral conversations, etc. whatnot. He's been bringing these conversations and debates out for over 10 years. This is the 11th season of Debate Talk for You. So please don't forget to bless him, put some money in his pocket, because he doesn't have to give us his platform to do this with. So with that, I'm going to close out and say peace and love. Amen.